Howdy, howdy, doody doo.
And cheers, y'all.
Hi, everyone. Oh, I have seltzer. Cheersy, cheers. Oh, he put up his cup. Can he hear us?
No, he can't hear you.
Oh my god, he's so
You're adorable.
cute. I want my kid to cheers me. She just like throws things at me. So
soon enough. Yeah, now the kids are really into cheersing. Both my girls, like Lena and Tessa, they're like, "Cheers, Dad, cheers,"
Yeah,
and they do it like
says
food
cheers
now too.
Yep,
does he?
Yeah, we just cheers peanut butter and jelly sandwiches this afternoon.
Nice,
Aww.
I like it.
All right, guys. So if you're just tuning in here, welcome everyone to another episode of Real Family-ish, the PG way of saying the name, because we're on Amazon every Wednesday at 10 p.m. And tonight, you could see him right down below.
Yeah, man.
Please make sure I'm saying the person's name right this time, Mike. Do not let me go 30 minutes in the live saying the person's name wrong. They would not. They did not correct me. Miggs, correct?
Yeah, Miguel, but I just go by Miggs.
Oh, I had a friend who was a rapper. His name was Miggs. Actually, it's funny. But yes, Miggs is here. Miggs, I'll let you do a little bit of introduction about yourself. Tell the people who you are, what you're about, and then we'll kind of dive in with some questions, maybe some Q&A, because I really want to dive in with you. As you were saying before, you were transparent about your addiction, alcoholism, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And your fitness journey,
everything. I know Mike's a fitness person, so he's the fitness guru.
Well, and also transparently, Miggs is a sponsored athlete and client of ours. So like, shout out to you, Miggs, for just like entrusting me to be a part of your overall program and everything that you're doing and like the stuff. So again, guys, he also has his TikTok in the descriptions. You go follow him there. He's got we'll get into that, but Miggs, sorry, we're going to go. We're so excited for you. Yeah, we're just ranting. Just go. Talk to us. Who are you? What are you doing here? What's the dealio?
My name is Miguel Reyes. I just go by Miggs. 34, recovering alcoholic with 6 weeks shy of 4 years. I try not to celebrate too early, so I don't say I'll have 4 years because you got to take this one day at a time. I don't want to take anything for granted. So 6 weeks shy of 4 years recovery from alcoholism. If you kind of want an idea of what that looks like, it's about this big because I sobered up actually when this little guy on my lap right here was only 16 days old. He was a big part of the reason that I did get sober. I'm actually overall a father of 3. I have 16-year-old twin boys that I don't really have a great relationship with due to a lot of the stuff I did in the past.
How old are you? 16-year-olds? How old are you? You look so young.
I'm 34. I'll be 35 this summer.
I thought you were like 25 years old.
I appreciate that. You want to say something? Okay, go ahead. Say hello. Tell them your name. And tell them when your birthday is. Are you going to say anything?
I'm waiting for him to go or something.
Like, just let me get close.
He was doing that to the people at the gym actually today. That was his exact response to everybody at the gym.
Just like
yeah, exactly that. But I'm 34. I'll be 35 this summer. And yeah, like I said, I have twins that I don't have a great relationship with because I was when I was in active addiction, I was a pretty bad person. I chose partying over everything. Not like a bad person in like the violent kind of way or anything like that, but I just chose partying over everything. Got myself in some legal trouble as well. Picked up my first and only felony when I was got arrested when I was 19 or 20. I was convicted when I was 21 of a 3rd-degree felony for delivery of a controlled substance. And Yeah, that's kind of like a little bit of the backstory, like the short version. Can definitely go in as much detail as you want, but that's kind of the short version. And then when I sobered up, I started an online community. About a year or so later, I suffered an injury. I was training for my first marathon, and I suffered an injury. I broke my ankle while training for my first marathon, and I almost relapsed. And then instead of throwing a pity party for myself, after throwing a pity party for myself, I eventually started an online community for other people in recovery that wanted to focus on a life of health and fitness. That's the Staying Fit ODAT. We've been a group now since the end of January 2020 is when the group started. In that year and a half or so that we've been going, 2.5 years that we've been going, we now have 820 some members spread out over 27 different countries, and also host a podcast. And yeah, I guess that's the quick description of everything overall in a nutshell. And like I said, I'm very, very open about my story, everything I've done, everything I'm doing, and trying to help and inspire others that feel that they're alone, to let them know that they don't have to be alone. I'm like the 100% opposite of anonymous in my recovery. I'm only anonymous about other people's recovery when they're not open.
Okay.
Which is beautiful. And so one thing I want to highlight too is what ODAT stands for. So for those that are unfamiliar with either just any kind of relationship to that, let's break down what ODAT stands for, the acronym.
ODAT is something I heard very, very early on. It stands for one day at a time. It is something that I heard it in the meetings when I was early on in my recovery. And I realized that one day at a time applies to so much more than just recovery. It's kind of like the serenity prayer, which I never started doing until I got sober. It's like those two things, one day at a time, and the serenity prayer are two things that apply to so much more than just recovery. They apply to just everyday life. You're going out there and you're a little overweight and you want to start losing weight and you want to get back in the gym. Well, you're not going to lose 20 pounds overnight and hit your goals. You got to do it one day at a time. You want to build up in your company. I mean, you've never dealt with a substance issue. You've never dealt with alcoholism. You've never dealt with anything. You just want to build up into your company and you want to become a CEO. Well, that's not going to happen overnight. I mean, it might if you have the money, but realistically, it's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to build up one day at a time. So it just applies to everything in life. Give me 1 second here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. That's what family life.
All right. Hey, you got to go with mommy. Give me besos. It's time for night nights.
So this is also a perfect example of when we talk about real family-ish, and that's why it's the name of the podcast, this is a massive part, right? This is a huge part of...
He's not happy because we're making him get off camera and go to bed.
Oh.
He's like his dad. He's a ham. He's a ham like his dad.
He's like, let me be on camera.
Let me talk, guys. And real quick, before we continue, guys, just so you know, all the products in the carousel down below are products that we are using here on our podcast, from the mics to the computers to the lights to everything you see. I know, Mike. Of course, Mike has a TENS on.
I've got a lightning deal right now for this, so that's why I'm highlighting the TENS unit, because we got a little discount.
But guys, this episode and our podcast weekly focuses on our guests, on you guys in the chat. So we really encourage you to talk in the chat.
Ask questions.
Yes,
especially for
be
Migs.
Involved. We do talk about products or highlight them throughout the live, but this is mainly focused about a conversation, talking with you guys. We try to switch it up a little bit and talk to you guys and make it interesting. A few things that I don't want to be the person who focuses. I don't want you. I may hate people who are recovering addicts, make it feel like the only thing people want to talk about is their recovery or what they've been through or anything like that. I think Mike will attest to I have my certain views on addiction. It runs deep in our family, and I'd love to get some point of views from you, and maybe you can change my point of views and tell me if I'm coming off too harsh, too rude, or too mean. I don't know.
Perception.
And I don't think I've ever talked to someone who's really open about their addiction. It's always about covering it up. How can we hide it? Let's sweep it under the rug. And that's how my family has always dealt with addiction and stuff like that. I have siblings who have addiction currently, and it's just been an ongoing struggle with that. So I kind of wanted to get your perspective on it as well. And I'm sure Mike has other things as far as the health aspect, everything else we want to touch base on, because I think it's a real eye opener when you hear someone who is a former addict, how they talk about addiction opposed to a family member of theirs.
For sure. And one thing I will actually, and again, this is all, I'm not speaking for everybody. This is just for me. But one thing I will already clarify is when you're in active recovery, you're never a former addict. You're always an addict. You're just currently in recovery. So that's something that I try and focus on, because like you're never recovered. You're never, you know what I mean? Like you might be
ODAT, right?
You might have been formerly using, but you're never like, in my opinion, you're not a former addict. You're still an addict. You're still an alcoholic. You're just currently in recovery. You're currently sober. But that's something, like, to me personally, that's one of those things that like goes with like not taking it for granted and sticking with the one day at a time mentality, because I can't wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm good, I'm recovered, I'm sober, because I've seen people with so many years. And even going on the podcast, like one person specifically, this lady I interviewed, she had like a little over 8 years sober, and she just thought she had it all under control, stopped going to meetings, stopped doing everything she was doing. And then just one day it was all taken from her because she picked up a drink and she thought she could be okay. And then she went back out and she was actively using for a few years before she came back into recovery. So I try, and I can't speak for what's going to happen tomorrow, but I try not to take it for granted and ever say that I'm recovered, I'm good, because I don't want to lose that sense of where I came from and where I want to go in my recovery, because I don't want to lose it. It means way too much to me.
Yeah, and I had a friend, I'm not going to say her name, obviously, who was recovering, or would that be the correct term?
Yes,
they were recovering.
Yes, absolutely.
So she was sober, I think, 3 or 4 years, and then she felt she could handle a drink out. She felt she could handle this going out. And one day I'm on FaceTime with her, and I just see her with a beer in her hand, and I'm like, what do you do? Like, when did this start? Like, what?
Yeah,
like, because she was far from me. And I was genuinely concerned. She's like, I can handle it, it's under control. From there, it went from a drink to smoking weed. There's nothing wrong with smoking weed. I know that's like a gray area with recovering
It really is.
addicts.
It's such a gray area, especially depending on where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it being called like Cali sober.
Yeah, that is a term. That is 100% a term. And depending on who you talk to, it's really, really frowned upon. Me personally, I'm actually not against it. I'm all for being Cali sober. You know what I mean? If it's all about your perspective, your intentions, and where you stand with it. Like if weed really wasn't an issue for you, and it isn't an issue for you, and also really what you're using it for, if you're using it for medical reasons, if you're just using it because you want to wake up and you want to be stoned at 10 a.m., probably not a great idea. But if you're using it because you have real medical issues, then it really is a gray line. And when you talk to some of the older people in the rooms, as far as like Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, it's really, really, really a gray area, because they deal with specifically with narcotics. But when you go into like AA, it's tough, because like we have this thing that we go by. It's called the Big Book. It's kind of like the AA Bible, so to speak. It has all the steps in it, everything that they want you to do and whatnot. And when you go through that, it says no mind altering substances, but also kind of like, just like the real Bible, when you kind of really break it down and you read everything, you can find some things that almost contradict something else. So depending on what point of view you're coming in from, you can say, well, yeah, that says this, but this says this. And so one of the things that really kind of does that is, it'll say no mind altering substances, but then it also says the only requirement is desire to stop drinking. So it depends on where you're looking. Again, I mean, you can talk to some people who go in and they have a prescription from their doctor to take Xanax because they have an issue, or maybe they messed up their back and they have, I'm drawing a blank on the, not like Vicodin or Percocet, but there's like something else that a lot of people take. Yeah. There's a specific one that like a decent amount of people kind of take. But like that's okay. But then these same people, while they're taking this Xanax or whatnot, they'll tell you that if you smoke weed, that you lost your sobriety and you have to throw it away. And I'm like, I don't know, because, it's easy to say in Pennsylvania, but what if we lived in California or Colorado or something where medical started a lot sooner? And if they prescribed you, marijuana flower for your addiction, or for your issue,
for anxiety,
cancer, anxiety,
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, so if they prescribed you that, then like you taking this Xanax for doctor prescribed reasons, how is that any different than someone taking flour for doctor prescribed reasons? It's just like, so again, a very, very gray area. I'm not against it. I also don't like promote it in a way where I'm like, yeah, go do that. It's cool. Or you should do this, but like, I'm not against it. I'm not the kind of person that says, oh, you have to throw away your sobriety because you did that. Like, that's between you. It really should be between you and if you are a 12-stepper, because again, I'm also very big on 12-step programs are not the only way to stay sober. It is not the only route, especially in 2022. There are so many ways between different online communities. There's Smart Recovery. There's other online programs out there. There's, counselors, therapists, church groups, just reaching out to people. So there's so many different avenues that you can take. But if you are a 12-stepper and you're doing it the way they suggest, then you should have a sponsor. And if you have a sponsor, pretty much anything you do should really be talked about with your sponsor. And if everything is done for the right characteristics and for the right reasons, then that's between you and that him or her. And, that's for the two of you to figure out where your sobriety is. Because at the end of the day, nobody else can tell you how sober you are, how many days you have, what you're doing. That's at the end of the day, that's for you to decide. If you want to lie to yourself and you want to tell everybody, all right, I'm sober because all I did was, my problem was with alcohol. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to do a little bit of snow at the bar, or, I'm going to go grab this bag of whatever and I'm going to go do that, or vice versa. I only used to, deal with banging out, or, maybe all I did before was snow. And so now I can have a few beers, and that's up to you. That's on you. And I think you even mentioned it in one of your other podcasts that I jumped in on, and I was kind of just like chatting in MAT as well. Medically assisted treatment. That's one of those really big things where, depending on who you talk to, people really like shun against that. And they're like, oh, you're not clean, you're not sober if you're doing this. But at the end of the day, I'm just all about people staying alive for today, because my issue is with alcohol. But there's people out there that had way more, I don't want to say more severe, because alcohol is very, very serious. And it's actually one of the only things that you can actually die from withdrawal, when you're going through withdrawal, trying to sober up. It's one of the only things that can actually kill you in withdrawal if your body is too hooked on it. But if you're recovering from opiates, and you're taking MAT, then God bless you, because you're staying another day sober. Again, it's all about your intentions. Are you taking this so that way you can feel, not sober, or are you taking this because you want to not do the more hard stuff? And that is between you, your higher power, your sponsor, whatever you're working with. That's for you to figure out, because I'm really big on people doing whatever they got to do to stay sober today, and I don't want to shun them, because, Peter might feel some type of way, and he might say, well, everybody's telling me, Gina's telling me I'm not sober, Mike's telling me I'm not sober, Miggs is telling me I'm not sober, so I'm going to stop talking about this. I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to stay to myself. And before you know it, he doesn't feel like he can talk to anybody, and now he's back to that hard stuff. I'd rather be like, look, Peter, that might not be the greatest, but at the same time, you do what you got to do to get through it today, because tomorrow you might not want to do that anymore. And I want you to get to that point before you go the other way around, especially with this fentanyl and all this stuff out in these drugs these days. I'm tired of seeing people die. And so, I'm really big on whatever you got to do to get through today. Again, the one day at a time. I'll probably say that 1,000 more times on this episode, but whatever you got to do to get through one more day, to fall asleep without using the drug or whatever got you where you are, and waking up tomorrow with a fresh chance to try again.
And one thing I wanted to throw out there, and I'm curious if there's anything jumping out at you, G, but one thing this makes me think of, because you mentioned, again, there's not just like going to AA, NA. I've gone to, is it Al-Anon?
Yep.
Right. Like sort of like the support group for
Al-Anon is for like family members of the alcoholic.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I've gone to things like that. And so my point of saying this is like, especially during COVID, right? Especially in the last 2.5 years, I'm curious from your perspective, Migs, if you could speak to this, especially with your community that you've created. How did that, because I didn't really think about this until you were kind of mentioning, because I know like in the health and fitness space, obviously gyms closed for lengths of time, like I'm sure obviously like churches and meeting locations and things like that got shut down. So obviously with the virtual side of things, I'm sure there was still something, but I wonder what did you see or what did you notice from your perspective? And then with your community, how was that kind of impacted? What did that do? And like, if you had the ability to like speak to someone, let's say someone's watching right now that's struggling with it themselves and they don't feel comfortable going to a meeting, you know, how might the virtual side of things be an opportunity or a resource for them?
For sure. Well, one thing that's really awesome about the virtual, which, you know, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the virtual, because I like the whole face-to-face interaction and talking to people. But one good thing about the virtual is if you don't want people to see your face, if you're not open, you don't want to talk about things yet, you can leave the little black screen on and you can just listen to people. The same way when you go to a live meeting, you know, you don't have to share. You can just sit there quietly and listen, take something in. Maybe something will resonate with you. Maybe you'll hear something that you can take home with you and you can build from that to get through another day. But as far as what you were getting at too, in the beginning of COVID, it was terrible. I'm very, very, very fortunate and by the grace of God that I sobered up about 1.5 years before COVID happened, almost 2 years. So I was able to have a somewhat good grasp on my sobriety. And also, luckily, the Staying Fit ODAC group actually started without knowing, obviously, but 2.5 months before COVID. And so also had that to reach out to people and talk to them. But I really, really, really have respect for anybody in recovery, no matter how much time you have, whether you have 1 day or 100 years. They always say the most important person in the room is the newcomer, the person with 24 hours or more or less, whatever. But the person with the least sobriety in the room is the most important person because they got to catch up. They want them to have what other people have. But as far as like me personally, anybody who has between, I'll say like 1 year and 2 years sobriety right now, anybody who's in that sweet spot, I have the utmost respect for, because you sobered up at one of the hardest times the world has ever seen. As far as that, I mean, the relapse numbers that happened in the beginning of COVID were unbelievable because people lost the rooms. Like, just imagine like someone just started going to AA or NA in like January or February of 2020. One of the first things they tell you to do is get a sponsor and 90 and 90, which is go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Those are the first two things they really tell you in there. And so imagine everything's going good. You're going to your meetings, you're 30, 40, 50 days in, and then all of a sudden COVID happens like this. You know, there was a few weeks before they even got on Zoom. And so imagine like just yesterday you went to a meeting, tomorrow you can't go to one. Now the next day you can't go to one. But you know what's still open? The liquor store is still open. You know who's still out there? Bobby's still out on the corner, still slinging. So you can still go grab that bag of whatever used to bring you in before. So all of that is still there. Those businesses never shut down. Those businesses actually thrived. And so the amount of relapses that happen. So I have a whole, like I said, I love anybody in recovery, but I have a whole different respect for anybody with that one to 2 years, because you did it when you didn't have options. You buckled down and hopefully you reached out to people. You talked to people. You eventually got on the Zoom meetings and you powered through it to stay until you were able to get back into the rooms, or you found other online resources, whatever the case may be. Like the Staying Fit ODAC group was great because we know we couldn't go to meetings, but at that point, I mean, even at that point, there was only, man, I want to say 40 or 50 members in the group because it was still so new. But every single day we're all talking to each other because we're like, hey, we can't go to the meetings we normally go to. Because in the beginning, it was pretty much, I think like out of the first 40 or 50 members, I want to say probably 90% of us were specifically 12 steppers. So, you know, of the core 40 or 50, if 40 are actually 40 or 45 or 12 steppers, then we're all talking to each other like, hey, we can't go to a meeting, but let's talk about this today. And they also say that 2 or more addicts speaking about it is a meeting. So when someone posts, hey, I'm having a tough day, I really wanted to go pick up a drink and I can't go to this meeting, and then you have 20 other people that are commenting and talking about it, before you know it, you're on this one Facebook thread for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Guess what, guys? You just had a meeting. You talked through your problems, you worked through it, and then hopefully at the end of that, you didn't pick up a drink or a drug, and you were able to fall asleep, another day sober, 1 day at a time, wake up and try again tomorrow. And a lot of times tomorrow, you're hopefully feeling better. But that's, I have, like I said, I can't say it enough. I have a different level of respect for and
Yeah.
appreciation for those people that have that certain amount of time, because you did it in the toughest time we've ever seen for recovery.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think it's really hard to during the second year of the pandemic, I was pregnant for the first when it hit in February. I found out I was pregnant a few months before. I had my daughter in September, and we moved in with my parents. And my sibling who has the addiction lives there, so we had to move in with them. And from what we understood, he was quote unquote sober. And I say quote unquote again, not to just, I know you said it's kind of like a gray area of what they're allowed to do, not do. He was smoking flower at the time, which again, I don't disagree with either, it depending on your person. But I feel from personal experience with my sibling that I feel like it's a cover. I feel like, oh, you don't look okay. Oh, I'm a little, from the flower. I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I can't tell. Like I'm not gonna. It's not my place to drug test you or anything.
Yeah, like bust out a drug test, like on site.
But here's the thing. Now it turned into he was prescribed X, Y, and Z. Like you said, they have anxiety. Here's the prescription.
For MAT, yeah.
Or not even just that, just like Xanax or Suboxone, Klonopin. I could go on.
By the way, Klonopin was the one I think that I was thinking of.
I think that's for anxiety though. I don't think that's pain management.
All right, maybe it wasn't then.
Volume.
I don't know. I'm not great with like the names of a lot of pills because that was never really opiates. Really wasn't my thing, so I never took pills.
So now we're going down a list of what they're prescribed. So if you drug test them, it's in there whether they're taking 12 or 1, the prescription amount. You're never gonna know by a drug test,
right?
So they're literally working the system. And then there was a few times while living there, we caught him saying, "Oh, I took it 1 too many. I saved my prescription. He's supposed to take 3 throughout the day. He saved all 3 to take it at 1 at night. Take all 3 at night." To me, that's still abusing your medication. Whether you prescribe, you're not taking it as you're supposed to. And now,
what's the intent? What's the intent behind the application?
It's 100%. It's all about the intent. And I personally, if you're doing anything other than what the doctor prescribes, then I'm not saying that someone is relapsing at that point, but it's just that's when you're starting to like manipulate the system. If you are skipping your morning dose and your afternoon dose because you're not feeling the pain and you're only taking 1 at night because you're supposed to take 1 every 8 hours, cool. But in my personal opinion,
3 in that one sitting.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you were kind of like saving it up. It's like, it kind of like goes back to drinking too. It's like when people try and cut down on their drinking and they're like, all right, well, I'm going to cut down to only 2 shots and 4 beers. But you know what I mean? They take both shots and 4 beers in like a 5-minute time span so they can be as drunk as possible for a short amount of time. I mean, that's you're starting to wheel and deal with yourself. You're starting to bargain with yourself.
You're not being truthful to yourself. And here's the issue now. I made a boundary, and we've tried time and time again with my sibling that, we're going to try to help you. Here's some things, maybe we can help you. Let's look into a recovery, program. We tried to help any way we could in the beginning. But it was like almost like clockwork. Every 6 months to a year, something would happen. There'd be an incident. And then there'd be an excuse for the incident, why it happened. Oh, it's only this one time, which correct me if I'm wrong, even if it's one time, that's still a relapse. That's still, you're still actively using, whether it's once a year, twice a year, 3 every day, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. If for whatever you are calling yourself sober from, if you do that, then yes.
Okay.
100%.
So now we're back to, where I'm at the point where I'm setting a boundary for myself that you are not allowed in my house. You are not allowed to be around me or my child. I don't really want to talk to you. And this is like the most recent incident. And, I don't know what you want me to do. Everyone's like, well, you should support them. You shouldn't cut them out. You shouldn't do this. You're being too harsh. They're family. To me, family is people who treat you like family. And what you're doing to me time and time again is not what family does to each other. I get you need a support system, but we've been that support system. We tried with you the last 10 years. So I don't know when enough is enough. So now here's that boundary. I'm cutting you off. Here it is. Now my parents are like, well, when are you gonna trust him again? It's been 4 months. You think he's cured in 4 months? And he's saying so on and so forth. But then we had an incident where he said he was taking too much medication at one time. He didn't realize how much medication he was taking. Like, let's be realistic. You think in 4 months you're cured on your own? He doesn't go to a single meeting. Didn't seek any help. Doesn't talk to anyone about it. Doesn't have a sponsor. You're telling me you're cured in 3 months, cold turkey?
It's very, very tough. And again, from speaking from someone who has been through that, because when I was still actively drinking, so no one in my family actually came out and said, Miguel, you're an alcoholic. You need to stop drinking. But they always did things and tried to manipulate situations in which would get me to drink less. Maybe they would forget to get beer for one random party or something like that, like a little family get together. They would forget to pick up the beer or whatever I asked them to pick up. And so I would have to go out and get it myself. Or, they would, my wife always had this like whole thing with like, when we were going out, she would like ask me to not drink more than a certain amount, or she would say that we have to leave by a certain time because she knows me well enough to know that, if we get there at 8:00 from like 9 to like 10:30, Miguel is going to be having fun. He's had that perfect amount of drinks where he's enjoyable. Everything is cool. But then by like 11:00, the switch goes from like 0 to 100, and then you're babysitting an adult. So my family didn't even tell me this. I didn't even realize this till I was sober pretty much, but they had actually planned multiple interventions in which they never went through on because they were scared that it would push me further away, because they knew my personality was, all right, if we actually call him an alcoholic, if we gang up on him, because that's kind of what an intervention can feel like to some people. If we do this, it's only going to push him further away, and then he's going to continue drinking longer. He's going to, at that point too. And I know, and they're not wrong, because if you would have told me that, then I was never the type of alcoholic to hide it, because I never thought I was an alcoholic. I never, ever, ever hit a drink in my life, except for when we were in the hospital when my son was born. I was drinking in the bathroom, and it wasn't even to hide it from my wife and my family, because they all knew what I was doing. It was honestly only to hide it from the doctors, because I didn't want and I didn't care what they thought about me. I didn't want them thinking differently of my wife. Like, who is this woman even married to? Who is this baby going home to? So I only hid it from them. But going back to like your sibling, like it's really, really, it's tough, because an addict isn't gonna go into recovery, and they're not going to take it serious until they want to. They can be given ultimatums. Their wife or husband's going to leave them. Their family is going to stop talking to them. They're going to cut them off. Maybe they're going to stop giving them
at that point if I don't cut
exactly. So that is a really, really tough spot, because I believe that you can support someone and you can love someone, but you can also love them from a distance. Like I personally don't think it's unreasonable to say, I love you, and I'm here if you need someone to talk to. I'm here if you need a ride to work. I'm here if you need a ride to a meeting. But I will not give you any money. You won't be around my children unsupervised, because I can't trust where your mentality, where your mind state is. And those are things that my siblings did with me. I'm the oldest of 5, but only 2 live up here. I have a brother and sister that live in Pennsylvania, and they both live very, very close to me. So they each had kids at the time, and I never even realized that I pretty much wasn't allowed to be left in a room with my nieces and nephews alone, not because they were fearing that like I would harm them, but they didn't know how responsible I was. How drunk is Miguel right now? Is he going to try and wrestle with them and fall on him? Or is he going to, if he babysits him and tries to keep him overnight, is he going to pass out drunk? And I think they were just scared. And they had every right to be, but I think it's very, very reasonable to support someone. And I think you should always, always, always tell them that you will always be there for them on the things that don't expense a financial energy and doesn't put other family members in danger, such as always being there to answer your phone whenever they need to talk, giving them rides in certain situations. Like I'm not dropping you off at the corner because I know what you're going to do, but I'll drop you off at your job if I know that's actually your job. I'll drop you off at maybe a job interview. I'll take you to a meeting. I'll take you to church. Any of those places that can enhance your life that might kind of click the switch too, because also it's hard to tell when their intentions are serious. Because one to do,
I was just say, how do I know if I'm dropping you off a meeting? You're at that point, I'm like, no, I'm not even driving you to a meeting. I don't know where you're going.
At that point, I think there is like a gray area too, where you kind of have to trust them if that's where they tell you they're going, because at the same time, the last thing you want to do, and it's hard to tell if this is happening, but the last thing you want to do is maybe Bobby over here is deciding this is the time I really want to take it serious. Like, I'm tired of not being able to be in my family's life. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. You know, Gina, can you drop me off at this meeting? And you rightfully so. No, I'm not dropping you off because I know you're going to go do this and that. And maybe that was the one time that they wanted to go to the meeting. And maybe that was the one time that they really wanted to do it. And then they feel,
and now you're stuck in this situation. They did put themselves there, and it sucks because you are in a catch-22. But now let me ask you, from a parent point of view, because I tell my parents all the time, like, you give, you know, it's a tough situation because they give them a roof, which I don't expect them to kick them out and put them on the curb. And I always said that. I don't expect, they're like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, you know, you get 4 square meals a day, these 4 walls, and that's it. I pay for your phone, give me your phone. I pay for this, give me this. You use my car, give me that. You know, that is it. And I know it's easier said than done because I don't have a child that age yet, and I would never wish that on a parent or anyone. But at what point are you enabling the situation, and at what point do you cut off your child, and as hard as it is?
Yeah, that's really, really tough. And that's a little hard for me to answer because I personally wasn't in that situation. Again, my youngest or my oldest aren't old enough that they're out on their own. They're also not into anything that I know of. And like, for me personally, I'd already not lived with my family since I was 18. So I wasn't personally being enabled, but I've seen it a million times. And it's really tough because I think a parent's biggest fear and what's going on in their mind is, as long as we keep Bobby in the house, maybe he'll clean up tomorrow.
Safe. Yeah.
And at least, and I think for a lot of times a parent too, is at least that they know that when he's home, you know, at least I know he's home, no matter like
peace of mind.
No matter how inebriated they are, no matter how high they are, no matter what's going on. Yeah, it's like, at least they're home and at least they're safe right now. My mom even told me too, and I didn't even live with my mom, but one of my things was like, I would try not to drink and drive if I could land a ride. And I would constantly call her at 2-3 in the morning when the bar would let out. If my wife didn't answer her phone, because back then she was still my fiance for most of our like, we were only married for 1 year that I was still in active addiction. But if I couldn't get a hold of her, or if she just purposely wasn't answering the phone because she knew what was going on, I would try and call my mom, and I would try and call other people to pick me up. And my mom even told me, like, one of her favorite things about me being sober was knowing that, like, I don't have to worry about that 3 a.m. call, worrying like, is this you to pick me up, or is this the police to tell me that something else happened? And, or is this an ambulance calling to let me know that her son is in the hospital? And so I think that's where a lot of parents are, where it's like, as long as he's upstairs, I know he might be high, he might be this, he might be that, but at least he's upstairs. But then, you know, I've also seen it too, where the parents go upstairs and they find their adult child and they're no longer alive, especially with today, with how strong stuff are. I obviously I won't say a name for anonymous reasons to this person, but there's a member of my distant family who just went through this, and they were letting their child stay with them, and they thought it was the best thing to do, and unfortunately found that person no longer alive up in the bedroom. And it's like, no parent should ever have to bury their child. And, you know, it's tough because it's like, did I enable that? Did I allow that by letting this be here? Or would this have happened still out there? And at least Bobby passed in his bed instead of on a curb somewhere. And it's so tough. It's really hard to say. I think when it comes to that, every situation is very unique, and it depends on what's going on. I would say if there is a physical situation, if this is someone who gets very physical, gets violent, and people in the house feel unsafe, I don't feel that any parent, spouse, sibling, nobody should have to tolerate that. If there are actual physical threats to yourself or other people, because if you don't give him $50, then he might harm you, then they got to go. And I'm all for you calling the police on this person if they have to be removed or doing whatever you got to do. But it's really tough too, especially when they're not being a violent person, or maybe they're not stealing from you, or you don't realize they're stealing from you. It's tough because you're just hoping that they get it together, but you don't know if they're gonna.
I think it's I think it's the mental part too, because now you're not physically, they may not be physically abusing you. Oh, I love you, mom. Thank you. You're the best mom. And they'll give you extra $50. You feel bad. They pull at your heartstrings. And, only people on the outside looking in, I feel like, see that. I think our parents are when I say ours, me and Michael's, are a little bit more, I would say, I don't want to use the word suckers, but, are a little bit more when their kids are saying, woe is me. Oh, everyone's blaming me. They're this and that. I would never do this. I would never do that. They give it instantly. That's it. Like, they believe their kid over anything, which kudos to you. They're taking advantage of you. And I even had this conversation with my mother the other day, and I'm like, someone mentioned, oh, their daughter's taking advantage and abusing their mom mentally. And I'm like, oh, like Anthony does to you sometimes. And she's like, no, that's not the case. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of that also has to do with culture too. Like, you guys are like those really like thick-blooded, strong Italian families. And like, if it was up to an Italian mom, their son would move in with their wife and all of their children, and they would live in another part of the house and they would be there forever. So it's also like that even just goes into like a lot of like particular cultures too, where it's like, like facts. Let them stay here forever. It has nothing to even do with drugs or alcohol. It's just like, I want my kids close to me. I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to see my grandkids. And then, you add in that already mentality with addiction, and it's like, man, a lot of times too, it's like they almost don't want, I think in some of those situations, they don't even want them to move out. They're not even thinking about suggesting to them to go out and do their own, because now it's like, I still have to keep an eye on the situation because I need to know what's going on. I know what they're doing, but maybe I can at least monitor the situation. At least maybe, and again, it goes back to, at least I can make sure that they're still alive. Maybe I can go open their bedroom door every couple hours and make sure that they're still breathing again, instead of being out on the sidewalk, or, hopefully I can make sure that I'm there to grab the cigarette out of their hand and put it away when they pass out drunk on the sofa, instead of setting the house on fire. And it's like, there's so many things that really, it's one of those things that is like, it's really, really tough. And I personally, again, I'm not saying that anybody has to do this, but I think that really goes with Al-Anon, which is, again, for anybody that doesn't know, Al-Anon is for family members of people in active addiction. So I think there you can actually talk to other parents who have been dealing with this, or other siblings or spouses, or, anything along those lines, to find out what it's like to live with an addict, someone, whether they're in active addiction or they're in recovery, because it works both ways. Because people are crazy if they also think that just because we recover, everything is all better. It's not all sunshine and rainbows when you get sober. Like, you become a better person in certain situations, but it's still a lot to deal with. Like, if everything was perfect, my wife would have it way easier than she does, because when she asked me to clean up something or stop being lazy or something like this and that, it would just be done because, oh, I'm sober now, everything is perfect. But no, I still have a lot of character defects. The only difference is I'm not drinking about them now. When my wife and I get into an argument, maybe I would have drank before until it didn't bother me. No, now maybe it stews, maybe it does this, maybe it does that. And the only difference is I'm not drinking now, but you still have to address those other situations. You still have to work on those other situations. And I think Al-Anon, for people who don't know how to deal with it and aren't aware, that can really, really help. I mean, there's honestly some people too, I think they have a term for it. It's called like double dippers, but there's actually some people that are like in AA or NA, and they're also in Al-Anon because maybe they're married to someone who's also in recovery. So not only are you working on your own recovery, but you're going to Al-Anon to then talk about how it is to live with someone who's in recovery as well, because you can focus on yourself and your own recovery, but I can't judge how Gina or Mike is in their recovery. So I might need to talk to other people to approach them, because when they're saying certain things and they're starting to trigger me or bother me, I need to know how to be able to approach them. So that way I'm not hiding myself. So that way I'm not picking up a drink. But at the same time, the last thing I want to do is do or say something that's going to trigger them to pick up a drink. So you have to learn how to habitate with each other. And so I mean, there are I personally don't know any people, but I have heard of quite a few people that actually will do both, so that way they can work on themselves and figure out how to deal with at-home situations.
Yeah, just really quick to tag in. So I wanted to just highlight. So for everybody that's commented, like Mish and also Ashley, like comments are great. I'm gonna read off a couple of them just to kind of tag in. And also Ashley said, "Thanks for sharing." By the way, Migs, interesting to hear the other side of the story. So she appreciates that's my wife, by the way. She's also another streamer here on Amazon. You guys can go check her out. And then Misha saying, you had some great points too going up throughout of it. And I like truly just wanted to say I appreciate you coming on to share this perspective and digging into these things because
comment, guys. I'm writing in the chat because like I didn't want to interrupt.
I don't want to cut off the flow because you're hitting some great points, but like definitely comment. We'll ask questions. So like and you brought up some points, Misha. Like so like when that's happening, if it gets into a situation where, maybe like, again, there's like either physical harm or a potential threat of abuse or all these other things, like obviously there's different decisions need to be made. Then I think Nix, you brought up a great point. This is why I do want to tie in somewhat of the fitness dynamic in one sense of it, or just overall health component of like, so you brought this up, right? So normally from my experience, because like I'm going to be super transparent with you guys. In my opinion, I would put myself in the addict category. Now, I haven't had the same struggle as far as with maybe alcohol specifically or any particular type of substance. Maybe like some flour, like that would definitely be like my one that you could say from like a behavioral pattern, like a habitual standpoint, that would have been my thing. It more so with like, even just like physical, like fighting, the gym became part of my addiction. Like I numbed myself since I was like 12 years old by avoiding emotions. And then I feel like sometimes with whether it's alcohol or whatever we're choosing, like that's a component of the psychological component of like, what are we avoiding? What are we numbing? What's leading to that choice? And then even when we pull that option off the table, or you say, hey, listen, like I'm now sober, there still is the person of you that we have to deal with, and the wake of all the choices that we made. To then we have to look at the relationships we might have damaged, the financial situations we put ourselves in. Like I realized this too, just to be super transparent of like, since maybe I was like 20, I've made choices of like, I put my fight career first. I was like all about becoming a professional athlete. I made decisions that were helpful for that, but poor decisions in my relationships. And I sacrificed a lot of people around me, and I hurt a lot of people because of that. And then I'm curious, like your perspective on like, so we come out, we have our sobriety focus, and then like, okay, now we're focusing on like health or like, cause you tied in running and you're a great, I think, example of like that component of it. But I think you just touched on such an important point of like, we still have to deal with ourselves. Like there's still the psychological component, the mental health side of it. And I'm wondering now to tie in the physical component, the fitness, the nutrition. And listen, I'm not saying it's all sunshine and rainbows either. Like even myself as a professional that does this, I'm still going through my own body transformations and my own body recompositions and things like that as well. So I wonder, like, how has that fit into this? And like, I imagine not only is there pros, right? Like, but I imagine there's also, I wonder if you can relate to this, Migs. Like when I don't go to the gym or I don't hit my schedule the way I set out, I can get really hard on myself and be really down, and it can lead to depression or depressive thought processes. And like, I wonder, what does that look like, for, if you don't mind me asking? In that,
yeah, for sure. And it's a great topic to discuss. So when I actually got into running, so when I was still in active addiction, kind of like the beginning of my fitness journey is just because I was really, really, really fat. I was 5'5", I'm like 5'7", 5'8"-ish. I say 5'8". If you talk to my wife, she'll tell you I'm 5'7". So it depends on which one of us you ask. But I'm like a really, 5'8". Really, yeah, I'm like a really tall 5'7", a short 5'8", however you want to look at it. But I peaked as far as like my weight, I peaked at like 235 at one point. And then I lost a bunch of weight. And then I started getting a little bit of a better shape. And then I gained a lot of it back again. So about a year or two before I quit drinking, I started doing like Spartans and Tough Mudders. And the beginning was just like the whole having fun aspect. There was the social aspect. There was go to the gym with a couple buddies, maybe run a couple miles and not care what time I finish this Spartan in or this Tough Mudder. And then afterwards, we're all just going to go drink and eat. And, it was the whole, like, I earned my calories mind state. And that's all I cared. Yep. It was all about the social aspect. And then when I quit drinking, it turned into a little bit more of, all right, they told me that if I go to this AA meeting, that'll keep me sober for an hour. So if I'm having trouble and I'm trying to figure out how to get through things, if I jog to this meeting or I ride my bike to this meeting and it takes me 30 or 45 minutes to get to this meeting, then I'm there for an hour, and then it takes me 30 or 45 minutes to get home. Now that actually kept me sober for 2.5, maybe even 3 hours. That kept me sober. Same with going to the gym. I'm not going to drink a beer inside the gym. So if I stay at the gym and I work out and I do cardio until I want to throw up, maybe that kept me sober for another 2 hours, and I can go to a meeting before and I can go to a meeting after. So it all started as like just time fillers. It was like back to even before I was really doing it one day at a time. It was like the whole one hour at a time, 1 minute at a time. And it's just like, what can I do to stay sober right now? So that's where a lot of it started. And then I met a really, really good friend. I was 3 days sober when I met this guy. Shout out Dave. He's back in the rooms now after a little bit back of we like to call it field research. Depending on who you're talking to, certain people don't like to use the word relapse. They like to use the word field research. It's when you go back out and you realize you try and do those things you were doing, and then you realize it's not good for you anymore. But anyway,
I like that.
Yeah, he went back out and he was doing some of that. And again, I'm only saying this because this is something he shares openly as well. So anyway, when I met his twin brother, he introduced me to him. We were working out one day, and then his twin brother was a runner. And that's like what I started to like. And I was like, and when I say a runner, like my man John is a runner, like super fast as hell. Like I met him one day, he ran a 5K with me, and I'm talking like he's a responsible drinker. So like he went out for a Saturday night, tied on a few, woke up hungover on a Sunday morning, rolled out of bed, hungover, barely stretched, and won a race, like a 5K in a local neighborhood. But like he's like that fast, like 17, 18 minutes if he's hungover and not even trying, like that kind of fast. So I started picking his brain. I was like, yeah, I want to be faster. I want to run a 5K. And this time I want to do this. I want to do that. He gave me some pointers. And then I started taking running more seriously. That led into now, once I did a 5K, I got taste of a 5K. Then I wanted to do a 10K. And like, I have the whole 0 to 100 mentality. So after a 5K, it wasn't like, oh, I want to do a 10K. I want to do a half marathon. I want to do this. I want to do that. It was like, all right, from 5K to marathon. Like that's it. There's pretty much no in between. I ran a 5K. I had the taste of blood. I wanted to do a marathon. One of my best friend, who was actually one of my best men at my wedding, was actually signing up for the Los Angeles Marathon. And this was in 2000, where we started having a discussion in 2019. He was signing up for the Los Angeles Marathon for March of 2020. So, you know, my whole addictive personality, 0 to 100 mentality, I was like, I'm in. I'm going to go run this marathon with you. We're going to fly to LA. We're going to see LA. We're going to go have some fun. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm 8 weeks into a training run. And this is where the whole not being able to do certain things really like laps in. So I'm 8 weeks into a training run, which is like the exact halfway point of the 16-week plan I had in mind. I go out, I'm supposed to do a 17-mile run. I actually mapped it out perfectly where our son he would have been a year and a half at this point. Yeah, no, not even. He would have been 6 months old. Sorry, 6 months old. And so I'm out, I'm running January 12th. And I step in a pothole and snap my ankle immediately. And it was like a nasty, deep pothole. Nasty. And so like immediately I was like praying to God it wasn't broken. I had the map worked out where I was going to run to a certain point. My wife was going to pick me up. We'd go grab some food. And I couldn't even make it to the pickup point. She had to pick me up at a church because I kept going. I ran for 8 more miles on a broken ankle before I just couldn't take it anymore. I actually only fell 1.5 miles. Like the whole cocky ego part of that run it was supposed to be 17.5 miles. I broke it at mile 8 and I made it to mile 16 before I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I take off my shoe. I look at it. It looks disgusting. I can't run. At this point in my life, I'd actually built up a resentment towards meetings because I had a situation in which I got into an argument with someone at a meeting, which turned into it did get a little physical. A couple things happened. And so I had this huge resentment because people didn't see my side of the story. They only saw certain people only saw another side of the story because he had been going to this meeting a lot longer and had a lot more sobriety than me. And I think some people were looking at it like, oh, this guy only has 1.5 years and blah, blah, blah. And I felt like I wasn't treated fairly in the situation, but regardless of which way you look at it, I built up a resentment towards meetings. So that happened a couple weeks before. So I wasn't going to meetings at that point, and I hadn't been to a meeting in weeks, which at this point in my recovery, I had never been 2 weeks without a meeting until this incident happened. So it built up a nasty resentment in my head. Then I break my ankle. And then that adds into the fact of the whole poor me, poor me, poor me mentality. So I tried to convince myself that the ankle wasn't broken. It's just a sprain. I'll be back to running in a couple weeks. It'll all be good. I'm getting ready to buy the plane ticket because the marathon's already paid for. I'm getting ready to buy the plane ticket. And my wife, being the responsible, realistic, logical one in the relationship, says, I really, really think that you should get it looked at by a doctor before you buy the plane ticket and you waste all this money flying to LA. And yeah, all right, whatever, sure. So after walking around on it for a week and a half, and keep in mind, I'm a server, I didn't miss a single shift. I was back to work 3 days later. I worked that entire weekend. I go back to work again. I work another night. Then I work 2 more nights because I go back in that next Friday. I broke it on a Sunday. I made it all the way. I broke it all the way to, I made it all the way to the next Friday. 11 days later, I tell my boss, I said, hey, I want to get out of here like 20 minutes early if it's cool. I want to go to the urgent care and I want to get this x-rayed and I want to get it looked at. I need to just make sure it's not broken. There's no way your ankle's broken. There's no way you've been serving for the last week and a half on a broken ankle. I said, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I just need to be able to show Mallory that it's not broken. So that way she won't give me hell when I go book the plane ticket for LA and she won't feel like I'm lighting money on fire. All right, cool. I go. First off, I was really annoyed with the doctor because he thought I was just trying to dive in for pills, which was really upsetting because when I signed in, I told him, I said, look, please, before I even see anybody, don't prescribe me anything. Don't give me anything. Don't even talk to me about it because I don't want to take any painkillers. I just want to see if my ankle's broken. Well, the lack of communication on top of the urgent care was getting ready to close. First thing the doctor says when he comes in is, I'm not giving you any painkillers. So I spazzed out on him. I said, look, I specifically already told people that you're working with that I didn't want any painkillers. I didn't even want to talk about it. I'm in recovery. I don't want any pills. Can you please just check my damn ankle, make sure that it's whatever the case may be so I can get out of here. I was already super annoyed. He changed his whole tone after that. He checked it, comes back, tells me it's broken. I don't know how you've been walking on it for the last week and a half. Like you fractured your malleolus, whatever. So I went to work the next night. That Saturday night, I go to work. I'm super depressed. Actually, that Friday night, I damn near cried myself to sleep. And like I was super depressed. Everything was over. I'm not going to get to run this marathon. It was super depressing. So that Saturday, I go to work and I don't take my wallet to work because it's right down the street from my house. I work for cash, whatever. I usually don't need my wallet. So I don't take my wallet to work. I go to the 6-pack shop right next door, right after work. I try and go buy a 6-pack of beer. I put the 6-pack of beer on the counter and I try and, in my mind, I was going to drink. I like to think that I wouldn't have drank it anyway, but regardless, they carded me, didn't serve me. Felt like it was God stepping in. So I have this resentment towards AA. I now have a broken ankle. These are the 2 things that keep me sober. I can't go to meetings right now because of my own personal resentments, and I can't run, which is a big part of my sobriety at the time. One of my best friends, who's like a brother to me, his mom kept telling me too, like, Miggs, you have to make sure you stay doing something else. Even if you're not going to meetings, you have to continue talking to people. You have to do this. You have to do that. Yeah. This was a couple weeks before the injury happened. She said, God forbid something happened to you. You get injured and you can't do anything. You know, what are you going to have to fall back on? If right now, if running is what's keeping you sober, what are you going to do when you can't run or if you can't run? And it was like God speaking through all these situations. And so that's kind of where the group started. So I can reach out to other people. I could talk to other people. And again, I apologize. I know this was like a really, really long drawn out way of like getting to it, but like that's like the whole part of like, you know, it did become such a big part of my life that I almost didn't have anything else to fall back on. And yeah, it does turn into a whole nother addiction. Running becomes an addiction. Going to the gym becomes an addiction. But to me, those are good addictions. I've had people ask me like, Miggs, what are you running from? What kind of personal stuff do you have in your life? Like you run so much. What are you running from? I don't know what I'm running from, but I know what I'm running towards. I'm running towards my recovery. I'm running towards my goals in life. I'm running towards. So I don't look at it as what I'm running from. I look at it as what I'm running towards. It's also time like when I'm not injured. Same thing again, too. Like when I broke my ankle again this last October, broke the same ankle in a different spot. You know, this time, and my wife checked up on me immediately. It was like, Do you need to go to a meeting? Do you feel like you're going to pick up a drink? Because she knew what happened last time. And it was like, no, I feel a little bit better this time because this time I'm a little bit more grounded. I understand the situation. I understand that just like they teach us in the rooms, this too shall pass. And it's something, this is like, again, another term that they teach us there, life on life's terms. This is what God had in his plan for me. He's seen how rough it brought me down last time. He wants to see how much I built up, how much I grew my sobriety. You know, can you handle another broken ankle? This one was also frustrating in a different way. Because this time it wasn't supposed to be my first marathon, but this time it happened 10 days out from a marathon. Like I go through another entire 16-week training block. This time I got to run coach. I'm taking things more serious. I'm trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I went through all the speed workouts. I went through all the hill workouts. I went through all the track workouts, all the long runs, all the 20-mile runs, all this and all that. And I break my ankle doing a damn 5-mile run on a smooth trail because I didn't see a walnut. I stepped on it, rolled it, snapped it. And so, again, very similar situation. I had to run on it for 2 more miles to get back to my car. But it was like, again, what am I going to do here? Am I going to throw a pity party for myself? Am I going to do the whole pour me a drink mentality? Or am I going to embrace the situation and don't focus on what I can't do, but focus on what I can do? So this time I just started going to the gym more, and I'm going to try and grow from it. But I strongly suggest to people that, especially if you're in recovery or whatever your case may be, no matter what you're doing, whether it's running, biking, swimming, going to the gym, whatever you're doing, always have a backup plan. Make sure you're still talking to people. Make sure you're still networking with people. Make sure you're still connecting with people, because one day you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that could all be taken from you. You could break your ankle. You could tear your ACL. You could get hit by a car. I mean, life on life's terms, you never know what's going to happen. And you need to be able to be prepared to deal with those situations. So you're not going to your local 6-pack shop trying to buy a beer and thanking God that he stepped in and didn't have your ID on your, whatever the case may be. Because I don't know, I still think to this day, I like to think that I would have left the 6-pack in the car. Maybe I would have gave it to a neighbor that still lived in the building that drank. I don't know what I would have did. I like to think I wouldn't have drank, but I'm really, really glad that I didn't have to find out. And so, you know, God stepped in, he intervened, but it's like, it really is like everything to my recovery. But at the same time, I've learned from that I have to have there's a lot of tools in your tool belt, and you have to make sure that you're using them all and you're not just using one.
And as long as I think a healthy addiction, I know that's like a what's it called? An oxymoron, in the sense if you're going to the gym where it's a healthy relationship, you're not like, you know, hurting yourself. It's not affecting anyone around you. You know, there's a difference between being addicted to, you know, drinking and
substance.
A substance opposed to going to the gym as well. And maybe clear this up for maybe myself even. I'm curious, what's the definition of an alcoholic? Because people could drink every day, not have episodes or anything bad happen to them. Is it because you're drinking every day, or because bad things happen when you're drinking? Like,
I think that's a person-to-person basis. And I use my father and my grandmother as 2 perfect examples that are complete opposite alcoholics. Mm-hmm. So you have my father who, when he was in active addiction, he was the type of person from the minute he woke up to the minute he went to bed, he was drinking. He was drinking and driving. He was doing all this and that. He did harder drugs as well. Mm-hmm. And then you have someone like myself who I didn't necessarily drink all day, but once I started, there was no off switch. It was like, I could make it till 11 o'clock at night without a drink. But the first drink I had at 11 o'clock, I was going to drink until I blacked out. I was going to pass out. I couldn't just have a couple drinks and have fun. There was no off switch. And then you have someone like my grandmother who didn't drink Monday through Friday. She would go to work Monday morning, working a Monday through Friday. She would go to work Monday morning and not drink until Friday after work. But then from the minute she clocked out Friday until she went to bed Sunday night, she was drinking all weekend long, like your weekend warrior. So there are so many different types. There are, like, I personally tell people, there are people that can have a drink every single day and not be an alcoholic. If Peter comes home from work and I feel bad, I keep picking on this random Peter that I just made up today.
That was going to be my next question. So Joe Schmo, or I mean, I'll say it, my parents come home. My dad doesn't drink all day, doesn't get blackout every night, but he'll down half a full bottle of wine a night. And that's every day. He can't go like a night without having at least 1 to 2 glasses of wine every single day.
I personally believe, and this is just my opinion, because there's no true definition of an alcoholic. An alcoholic, and to clarify, I think the most important part is I can't say Gina's an alcoholic. I can't say that Mike is a drug addict. I can't say that. Only you can say. Only thing I can say is Miguel is an alcoholic, or I can say that Joe is an alcoholic if he told me he's an alcoholic. But I can't. Someone who doesn't identify, I can't call them an alcoholic because I don't know what's truly going on in their life. So I personally believe that there are people out there that can have a drink every single day, 365 days a year, have a couple beers after work, take care of their business, do this and all that. And they might not be an alcoholic because they're drinking responsibly. Maybe they're drinking with the right intentions, whatever the case may be. I also believe that you can drink one time a year. If New Year's Eve is the only night a year that you drink, but from January 2nd until New Year's Eve, you're thinking about that drink and you have to have that drink and you plan everything in your day around having that drink and getting drunk that night. I mean, that's an alcoholic because it's where your brain is taking you and all you can think about is that. So I know it like seems very far-fetched, but I think it's all about where your brain is taking you. Where are your priorities? Where are your intentions? Where is everything? But the most important thing I've learned about everything is we can't call anybody an addict, an alcoholic, if they don't already define that way, because it goes back to what I said in the beginning too. I don't define someone else's recovery. Just like the same way I can't call you an addict is the same way I can't say that you're not sober anymore because you took some flour, or, you know, again, if opiates is your issue, you're not sober because you had a beer last night. Well, maybe you did opiates for 20 years and that beer doesn't trigger you. I don't know how your brain is working. Do I suggest it? Definitely not. But I'm not in your head. I don't know how your brain works. I don't know what your intentions are. I don't know what your triggers are. So, you know, it's all about people, places, and things. So it's really, really tough to decide what defines an alcoholic. I think an alcoholic is just defined by when one person had enough, they hit their rock bottom and they decide they want to do something about it, which is also something that I heard and that really stuck with me is rock bottom is not a person, place, thing. It's not an event. It's not when you go to jail. It's not when you get arrested. It's not when your wife or husband decides to leave you. It's not when your family decides to cut you off. It's not when you almost died. None of that is rock bottom. Rock bottom, and I usually say this using the full aggressive word, but rock bottom isn't a person, place, or thing. It's when you stop effing digging. That's where rock bottom is. It's when you grab the when you throw the shovel out the hole and you decide I'm not making this hole any deeper. How do I get out of it?
When you're
yeah, so that's an individual basis. That's for you or us to decide when we've had enough. Like me personally, I decided and I was an alcoholic when I came home from work, pretending that I was still at work. My wife knew I was lying because I did this every single day. And when I came home from work and told her I was tired, and she said, "Tough crap, you're feeding your son." And he was 15 or 16 days old. And I was holding him and I looked in his eyes and I realized like my estranged relationship with my dad, who's an alcoholic and a drug addict, I'm no better than him. I said I want to be a better father. I already have 16-year-old twins that at the time they were 13. You have 13-year-old twins that want nothing to do with you. You don't have a relationship with your father because he's an alcoholic and an addict. You can't be alone with your nieces and nephews because they're not sure how you're going to behave. Your wife knows you're lying to her regularly. Who knows how much longer she's going to put up? She never threatened to leave me, but I can't imagine that she was too happy. And so it's like I was looking in his eyes and I decided enough was enough. And I looked there and I said, "Bronx, I'm going to be better for you. I'm going to be sober. I'm going to try and do the right thing." And then when I went to a meeting a couple days later after going to church, one thing that someone said to me really, really stuck with me. An old timer after the meeting, after I shared my story, said, "You have a chance. It might be too late for your oldest kids to not see you drunk, but you have a chance for your youngest son to never see you drunk." And that's something that really, really stuck with me is to this day, that little guy that was sitting on my lap an hour ago, he's never seen his father drunk because my last drink was when he was 16 days old. And so he, God willing, one day at a time, knock on wood, he'll be able to make it through his entire life and not have any memories of his dad drunk. And, you know, I hope that we get to a point that when he's old enough and I have to explain to him, you know, because I'm probably still not as often, but I'm still going to AA meetings, you know, when he's a teenager. And when he says, "Why does dad have to go? Why do you still have to go to meetings? You know, you're not an alcoholic. You've never picked up a drink." Like, yeah, that's because I'm working on this. And that's why you've never seen it. That's why you don't know this version of your father. You don't know this guy who would pass out in the shower and take a 2-hour-long shower and just let it fill up. One time my old house flooded the entire bathroom because I fell asleep with the shower running and I didn't realize the plug dropped in. And my brother damn near had to break the bathroom door because he's banging on the door and he hears the water running and I'm not responding. And so like, who knows if that goes a little bit longer, who knows what happens? Maybe I die. Maybe the bathroom floor completely collapses. Like, who knows? It could have been any situation, and I've done that when my wife has had to yell at me many, many times, waking up at 3, 4 in the morning, banging on the bathroom door to wake me up. Cause that was like my go-to is passing out in the shower, completely blacked out drunk. Cause I thought it would sober me up and it wouldn't. But yeah, it's tough, but that's for, I guess, each person on their own to decide where they're at in their life and when they've had enough.
And I think we give a big shout out to your wife. She sounds like she has the patience of a saint.
Oh, my wife is my absolute rock. Her patience is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. She's actually, like I said, and I want to shout her out because my wife is an unbelievable workhorse. Like I mess with her all the time and I joke with her and because I'm constantly going out for runs and then I'm going to the gym. She's like, "Oh, you're going to the gym again," and this and that. And I'll be like, "What are those 4 words, babe?" The grind don't stop. That's what I always tell her. And I mess with her. And like, I give her a lot of crap, but I definitely don't say it enough, but I appreciate everything she does too, because right now she's doing 7 days a week right now. Like on top of everything that she's dealt with me, on top of, being a huge part of our son and everything he does. And, I get to be the fun dad. I get to take him out. We go running, we go playing, we wrestle. But then, she does a lot of that. Like, I don't want to say typical mom stuff, but she does a lot of that, have him on a great routine for bedtime and for bath time and reading and this and that. And then that's on top of she's going 7 days a week between work and school. Like she doesn't have one single day off from both. 7 days a week. She either has one or both. And she's just an absolute savage. There's 2 days a week where she's away from home for 15, 16 hours till she gets home. She still comes home. And like I said, it's not a perfect world, because if it was perfect, I would have the house a lot more clean than I do by the time she gets home. It's something that like, I don't glamorize. I keep saying I want to get better about it. I try to, but the laziness button is hard to click off for me. But she'll come home and then she'll do everything that she does around the house. And, she's definitely the rock of the family. She's a saint. Her patience level is unbelievable with me.
I commend your wife. I don't have patience like that. Mike, I am the worst. I would have been like,
and I give her the utmost respect too, because she never like, back to like when I was drinking, she never once gave me an ultimatum.
Like never.
I'm really curious as to why. I'm really genuinely curious as what did she feel in that moment that she's like, I'm going to stick with it. I'd have over and over again. No disrespect.
I don't even know if I've ever. No, I completely understand. I don't know if I've ever asked her why she didn't give me an ultimatum or why she never gave up. I think if I had to make one of my own guesses, and this is just an assumption here and a hypothesis, but I think that she knew. I like to think that she knew like who I was on the inside, because she would be able to see me sober. She knew the person that I could grow into. I believe that she knew the person that I wanted to be, and she knew where my intentions were. She just knew that I was a sick person who was actively still dealing with a disease. And I think also too, I'm so thankful that she never gave me an ultimatum, because as much as I love her, I want to spend the rest of my life with her. Like when I was still actively drinking, nobody could have gave me an ultimatum for anything, because if she would have told me stop drinking or I'm leaving, I don't even know if we'd be married right now, because I would have probably because nothing would have stopped me from getting in the way of what I was going to do. And maybe she knew that as well. And she wasn't ready to give up on the situation because she knew I wouldn't let anything get in between. It's hard. I can't really speak for her on that, but those are some things that I've had in my mind, is like, I just don't think she was ready to give up on us. And she knew that I wasn't going to choose anything over my drinking. That was priority number one at the time. And
so one thing that makes me think of, and like I've gone through like recently, Gina, like her and I have joked about this, and like my own emotional intelligence training, or we sometimes jokingly refer to it as like the cult conference kind of stuff, just because like some of the vibes of it have been interesting. But I truly has been amazing for me. And one of the things that comes up in this type of stuff is how we show up to people. And what I'm hearing and what I've seen from you, this is obviously my own experience in a short period of time, is how you show up to me. And I would speculate how you've shown up for your wife and to your wife prior to all this, like, and even during that, while you guys were engaged and dating, like, obviously how you showed up to her, knowing who you are as a person, who you are at your core, that obviously speaks to who that was and how you were showing up to her, because obviously she wanted to be there and wanted to make that work because she cared about you and because of how you showed up. So that's like my
I don't
thoughts.
still think I could stick with it even if I knew you were the most genuine person on this planet, and if I still know you have a heart of gold, you mean well, but I'm picking you off the shower floor, I'm picking you off the bathroom floor, and that's just me.
Sure.
And I think your wife sounds like the most strong-willed person ever, because I don't think I could do that. I think I would, like, even if it's just a couple months of me dealing with an alcoholic, or if I find out my husband's, like, turned into an alcoholic or whatever in the situation, I think I would turn up and just one day he would come home and I'm not there. That'd be how my first reaction. I'm not in that position. I can't say it, but knowing even with my brother, like, yeah, he has a heart of gold. Don't get me wrong. And I think he means absolutely well. And I don't think he realizes the damage he causes other people, but toodaloo, mother effer,
and you wouldn't be wrong for that either. I think that's one of those things where there's not necessarily a right or wrong. It did get towards the point where towards the end she stopped enabling the situations. Like back when we were like originally like dating early on, she would answer that phone at 2 or 3 in the morning and come pick me up. And if she said no, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm just going to drive my car, and that guilt trip would work. And, this and that. And she wouldn't want me drinking and driving. But towards the end, she started calling my bluff. Well, if you're willing to do that, then that's on you type thing. And it's like, so she stopped enabling more. She stopped, pretty much she stopped playing her part. It was going to be like, if you're going to do this, that's on you. I'm not dealing with it anymore. She would stop going to certain situations. If I wanted her to come somewhere with me, she would drive separately. So that way she can leave early if she have to, or she just wouldn't go. So that way she wouldn't have to deal with the babysitting or the embarrassment of who I would become by the end of the night. And so she started removing herself from a lot of situations, and she stopped at a lot of the enabling factor, I would say. But I guess, I don't, her heart of gold is amazing. And that's why she does. I think that's why she's doing so well in her profession and with nursing school. And that's why I say, like, any of the clients that she takes care of too, like they're beyond
meant to be a nurse.
Yeah, they are beyond blessed, because they don't understand. I mean, they do understand once they meet her, but the person that's taking care of her, like, this woman would do anything for anybody to help them out. And, I drive her crazy all the time. And she like yells at me for my behaviors, or, for doing something, or for not doing something, in most cases is usually what it comes to. But her heart of gold and the way she holds down our family is 100% second to none. And, she is 100% the rock of our family. And, without her, I don't know where my son and I would be. We'd probably both still be trying to recycle clothing and trying to figure out, like, my son would have been lucky because he would have kept having clean diapers, but who knows where we would have went with, like, what we'd been wearing or where we'd been going.
He'd be at the bar with you at 2 a.m. standing on the bar, and
who knows where we would be. Like, I don't know. Him and I would be in a lot of trouble without her if she decided that she didn't want to put up with it anymore. And I love and respect and so appreciative of her for sticking it out and giving me a chance to show her the sober version of myself. And, we're actually at a point still where, technically speaking, babe, we've been together, 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. Like 8.5 years. Like, she is still technically.
I love how she's in the background talking and listening to the entire.
Well,
I got you.
I don't know how much she can actually hear until I like raise my voice. She's like over in the other room studying because, again, this was one of those tough days. She left the house at 6:30 this morning for work, and then goes straight from work to school and gets home at like 9:15. So at PM. So it was one of those days. Now she's,
studying.
She did her routine, took little man upstairs, played with him for a little bit, laid him down for bed. Now she's studying. And here we are at 20 after 11. She's still going, and she has to be up at work at 6 a.m. to do it all over again. But yeah, she's actually, we're still at a point where, like, I still have to make it sober for another 1.5 years, knock on wood, for her to have gotten to a point where she has had me sober for longer than she has dealt with my active addiction. And so, like, again, that's another goal of mine, because she dealt with my addiction for 5 years. and she's only had me sober for not even 4 yet. So that's one of those things too, is I'm continuing to try and build myself and better myself to give her the husband that she deserves, because I already said everything that she does for me. So, I try and give her the person that she deserves for everything that she does for the family and does for us. And she deserves everything and anything. We were supposed to, I'm going to bust her a little bit. We were supposed to go to Greece next month for our anniversary, but, and again, it's just perfect example. Like, she wanted to go to nursing school. She wanted to better herself. She wanted to grow as a person, as a mom.
We're going to school.
Yeah, we had to reschedule our Greece trip because instead of like, oh, well, I'll push off school for another year or 2 years, it was, no, I'd rather push off Greece, which Santorini, like, if you ask her if she can go anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would it be? It would be Santorini. And so she pushed off that trip. No, she doesn't. Okay. She had a lot of fun high school partying days. She got it all in when she was young. So I met her when she was 21, and she was already had all of her partying out of her way. When I was still drinking, I also really enjoyed craft beer. So every once in a while, I would be drinking like a really interesting beer or cocktail or maybe a crazy glass of wine. And I would give her, hey, take a sip of this, try it. She would take a sip and, oh, that's good, or it's not good, or once in a while, or, back when I was enjoying flower, every once in a while, she might just like take like one, like, yeah, take like one little hit. But I can say there was in the 9+ years we've been together, there is less than 10 times combined where she has either taken a sip or taken a hit of anything I was doing. And like I said, less than 10 times combined. I have
for someone who doesn't drink.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have never actually seen her consume an alcoholic beverage. Like I said, an occasional sip, but I've never actually seen her consume a drink. I've never seen her drunk ever. I've never seen her buzzed. I've never seen her with more than one sip.
I am so curious.
Never.
What is she hiding? No kidding. What is she hiding?
Kudos to her. Also,
it probably didn't hurt that she saw how messed up I was and probably was like, yeah, I don't need to be that person either.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of questions in the chat. I haven't been paying attention because I've been so in tune with that.
Yeah, dude, this is such a great story. I was just going to say, Dorothy was saying on my chat that she loves your one day at a time hat. And then she said another friend of Bill W. I don't know.
Yeah, Bill W.
I don't know. Like, what's that?
Friends,
is that
friends of Bill? So this is like the open part, and this is like public information. You can just Google it. So Bill W. Bill Wilson, he was one of the creators of AA. He actually has a house in Ohio where you can actually go. You know what's funny? What's her name? Dorothy?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Dorothy, I couldn't find this hat. I actually almost wore a shirt or a hat that said Dr. Bob's house, friends with Bill W. So Dr. Bob and Bill W. actually created AA. Dr. Bob had a house in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio. Bill W. was an active alcoholic, and his wife pretty much convinced him to go meet with this guy. They talked, they worked through it. They started doing everything, and he lived in his house, and he eventually sobered up from his house. Like when the whole, like, so there's a lot of, some of this is speculation, but the whole like 12 steps, when everybody say like the 12 steps to recovery, a lot of people believe that the 12 steps started because the stairway leading up to Dr. Bob's house in Ohio was 12 steps. And so you took those 12 steps to go to this house, in which was the very, very first AA house. So really cool story, Dorothy. If you've never been there, Dr. Bob's house in Ohio, in Akron, is actually an open museum right now that anybody and everybody can just go. You can tour it. They actually give you a full tour of the house. They show you where he used to hide his alcohol from his wife. They show you the room where other people would come in, where they would detox in one room. Then where they would go, where they were done detoxing, they would show you the room where they did the 4-step prayer over people. And it was an unbelievable spiritual experience. Wow. And it really, really changed everything. They actually have a school around the corner. It's now an elementary school, but it was the very first place where AA ever had an open meeting outside of this house. You can actually go to his cemetery where Dr. Bob and his wife, Ann, were actually buried. And so it's like, there's so much history out there on like where AA actually started. And it's unbelievable. And my mom actually took me out there for my 3rd sober birthday last May. And I cried being in that house and just knowing, where they came from, and just being so thankful that these two people had a common goal to then save so many lives over the course of time, and they didn't have to be secret about it anymore, or, you know, depending on how you look at it, how anonymous, but it's amazing. So, but friends of Bill W. So if you are a little bit more anonymous, or if you just don't want to be like me and you're like, hey, I'm an alcoholic, blah, blah, blah. If someone is in recovery, or they see something, or they know something or whatnot, they might go up to someone and be like, hey, you friends with Bill W.? And they'll be like, yeah. And they'll be like, oh, cool. Like, I'm friends with him as well. And that's just kind of like, you know, if we're out in open public and we're out, if we're out in public, like if we're at a restaurant or something like that, like those two people know what they meant without having to come out and say, hey, are you an alcoholic as well? Because I am. So it's like, I actually wear, it's funny too. I actually wear this, a Serenity wristband on my wrist. And I actually had a guest one time too. I'm just like dropping off a drink. He saw the Serenity bracelet and he's like, are you friends with Bill W? I was like, I sure am. We've been hanging out for the last like 3 years. And he's like, yeah, cool. I've been friends with him for like 10 plus. And it's like, nobody else in their group of like 12 people knew what just happened. They think we just had a friend named Bill. They have no idea what just happened, but him and I just had a whole different conversation. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, then Dorothy says she also said Al-Anon was a big help in her childhood, and that she knew you would know, and that her dad would love that tour. He's friends with the state police officer who last arrested him, and that's like movie making kind of ish.
Oh my God. So Dorothy, please reach out to me on Facebook, Miguel Reyes. Send me a private chat. I would love to just like to talk to you more. That's so cool. And also join the Facebook group. It's just like the hat, Staying Fit ODAT. And if you like the hat, we can work something out and get you one. I also have shirts and hoodies and stuff, but definitely keep staying sober, Dorothy. I absolutely love that. Keep staying friends with Bill W. And definitely reach out, please. And I apologize. I won't say anything more about your recovery, but keep your grind on.
Yes. And we have Mish in the chat too.
Yeah, Mish. I'm going to drop some links in the chat too for you.
Yes, please do. This was like 30 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Mish. We were like really deep into conversation. She said at one point, I really believe it's true what Mike said about addictive personalities, just trading addictions, even some things people perceive as healthy, resentment will tear you down as well. What else she say? I believe when alcohol starts to dedicate what you do, or dictate what you do. You make decisions based on alcohol. I guess when we were talking about what defines an alcoholic, there are high functioning alcoholics out there. Yes, we all know there's high functioning, all types of addicts. For correct, am I wrong? There are such thing as a
100%.
Do you feel like AA needs to be for life? Was one of her last questions. That was like 15 minutes.
That's a good question.
I would personally say, if that's what got you there, then yes. And this is, again, I've had family members, my mom, my brother, my sister specifically, not knowing as much about it. I remember my mom one time dropping me off at home. We were hanging out. We went to go get dinner early on in my sobriety. And, you know, I'm still going to meetings every day. And she goes, how long do you think you're going to have to go to meetings? And my immediate response was, how long do I want to stay sober? And it was like, all right, cool. Like, I might not go to them every day anymore. You know, maybe you stop going every day. You start going once a week. You start going once a month, you know, whatever the case may be, whatever your schedule allows. But I do believe that if it is what got you sober and it was a big part of your early sobriety and it really, really helps you, then yeah, I mean, it's something you do. It is something you can or should or are willing or able to do for the rest of your life. I mean, I see people in the rooms. I mean, I guess if people didn't do it for the rest of their life, we would never meet anybody who ever had more than 10 years sober in a room or more than 20 years sober. But instead, I go to meetings with people that have been sober for 40, 50, 60 years, people that can't even see, can't even drive anymore. And someone a little bit younger is picking them up and bringing them to a meeting, and they're still opening up at a meeting, you know, after being sober for 60, 70 years. And it's like, you see this too. And I love seeing that because it just reminds me that, like, this is what the end goal is. The end goal is to stay sober. One thing I say all the time as well is there was an old timer who passed away when I first started going to the rooms. I never had the pleasure of meeting this person, and he passed away. And one thing that somebody said was that person always used to say, I want to live sober long enough to die of something else. He got cancer. He passed away and unfortunately passed of cancer. And one thing that everybody in the rooms remembered was that this person wanted to live long enough, stay sober long enough to die from something else. And he stayed sober long enough to die from cancer. So to the naked person who doesn't understand addiction, doesn't understand recovery, it's, yeah, this is so sad. So-and-so passed away of recovery. But everybody in the rooms were like, no, he stayed sober long enough for cancer to take him out. And that was a key point, because I want my tombstone. I want to be sober. I want everybody to know when they show up at my funeral, whatever the case may be, that whatever took out Miggs, it wasn't alcohol, it wasn't alcohol related, and he died sober. I want everybody's last memory of me to be a sober one. I mean, I might still be an a-hole. I might still be a butthead. You know, I might still be ignorant and obnoxious in some situations, but I want them to know that any of my behaviors had nothing to do with alcohol. It was just my own personality.
Dude, that's powerful, man. And so what I just did, guys, is on my chat for you, Dorothy, I dropped in the podcast, dropped in the TikTok, dropped in the Facebook group. For some reason, the Facebook group and some of the links, you have to like put spaces in there. So just know I had to
the Facebook group has spaces just like the hat. All of the social media platforms, it's one word, but the Facebook group, it is 3 individual words.
I mean, like for sharing the link on Amazon, they don't let you share certain information. So like I had to like put a space between like, Iko. So I just put and I also, dude, I realized that I didn't join the group prior. So I just joined, like I put in a request too, because I want to like help be in there. And like, honestly, like obviously I don't know, I don't want to push any of this stuff, but like, again, I'm on a mission. I'm a maniac on a mission right now. I want to impact 25,000 lives. So like, I'd love to offer up any support to the entire group. Nothing for fun. I don't want money. I don't care about money. I want to just support. So like, you know, sharing our website. I don't want to I'm not going to personally do that, because I don't want to like go into a group and do stuff like that. But I'm just saying, like, if you know anyone in the group that could use support, that wants help, that wants to go through the course, that could do anything, I'll set them up with a scholarship. We'll hook them up similar to kind of what we're doing with you, or whatever could be beneficial. And yeah, Brian, thanks for the follow. Just like, I just want to support, man. And then I'm on the group request right now. Dorothy's already on it, jumping in there. And yeah, guys, go check it out, man. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing. And like, honestly, any way we can just support and help each other and just like be there. I just want to, like, it's gonna sound cheesy, man. I just want to change the world, make a difference, and leave the world a better place than how we kind of came into it. But yeah, dude, I mean, there's so much. And what I kind of want,
I just approve both of you. You're in, browse around, introduce yourselves, talk to people.
Yay! I'm trying to get there, but like for some reason the link Mike dropped in the chat. For some reason, when I go to copy and paste it, it's not letting me go.
Yeah, I'll send it to you privately too, Gina.
Yeah, thank you.
I got you.
And I'll definitely share some information, everything you're doing in there as well, because as long as you're not like selling anything, then it really doesn't go against any of the group standards. And
but I don't want to.
I get it, and it's there to help people too. So I definitely appreciate it. Like, I try to tell people like not to try and like share stuff like that on their own, but at the same time, as long as I know what's going on, I'll just openly share it for you. And because I'm not, it's not like a business that I'm trying to like make money off. Like even the merch that I sell. A portion of it also goes back into the recovery community as well. Then another portion goes to just trying to get more merch. Like I definitely put way more money into anything than anything I've gotten back. Like, I mean, you know, I'm sure you know how it is, like between the podcast and the little bit of equipment I bought for the podcast and everything. And I've given so much merch away for free that it's just, I don't care. I just want to help people. I just want to continue recovering out loud and continue trying to help people and continue saving lives, because there are a lot of people out there who can't be open about their recovery because maybe if their job finds out, maybe they're worried that they'll get fired, or maybe they're trying to go for a different position at work and they don't want people thinking that they're an addict, or, you know, they don't want people, or whatever the case may be. I just don't want, I want those people to know that they're not alone.
And they have support, right? That's the craziest thing, is the most, in my opinion, this is my humble opinion, the worst place I've ever been in my life is I could be in a room full of people, but like when you feel alone and when you feel like there's no hope, the feeling of hopelessness is like the most damaging component from my personal experience in life. Like, obviously I haven't had the same experience as everyone else, but like that dynamic of hopelessness is just so brutal. And then also Heidi, I'll send you the link as well. I'll invite you on Facebook, because Heidi's gonna send in a request as well. So yeah, like again, guys, like happy to support. And
he's asking my recovery birthday. I don't have one. I don't think so.
It's no, I mean, you wouldn't if you're not, it's fine. The only requirement is the desire. And I mean, honestly, if I recognize the name too, those questions are more for like, if random people just see the group, and so that way that they
try
can
and get in, yeah.
that they can understand what kind of group they're joining. It's also to keep out bots and whatnot. But I'm gonna see your name and I'm just gonna approve it. Like you really don't even like anybody who's listening to this and requesting like the next like pretty much by the end of the night. I'm not even really gonna whatever. I'm just gonna hit
Heidi
the approve
wants
button.
the link to Mike. If you
I just sent you an invite, Heidi.
Yeah, it's also very easy to search. Like if you just go and search groups, it's just like it's spelled in the hat, Staying Fit ODAT. There's a picture of the other logo on there. It'll say private group, and it's just really cool. I do have like, one of the reasons too that I'm not anonymous is because you never know who's listening, who's overhearing, and who just needs to hear that. I mean, I have a couple quick stories on that. Like I play poker a lot. It's like a little bit of part of my income, like I guess like a part-time income, you can say.
Oh, I meant to tell you, who I'm meeting next week, by the way? You'll love this. Daniel and Granu or Nick.
Daniel, really? Yeah, Daniel
on Wednesday.
He's one of the goats. They call him Kid
dude,
Poker.
He's a Hall of Famer, homie.
He's 100% he's one of the goats. He's a big pioneer for poker and where it is today. He's unbelievable. I would love to meet him. He's that's so cool. Where are you meeting him at?
It's just it's actually like a Zoom, like just like a hangout, like interview kind of thing.
Like, what's the purpose of it?
It's so it's like part of the so the training and the leadership programs I go through, like he's one of the main, he went through it like 12 years ago and he's one of the main supporters, and he sponsors people, he'll pay for people to go, like he's like a massive supporter of it. So they're like, hey, like we're gonna have him come on, you can interview him, ask him questions. He has a documentary out called Kid Poker. I'm not sure if you see it. It's on video. Like it was so we saw it last night, and then we had like a little bit of an assignment, so like I got to write up questions to ask him and do all this fun stuff. So I'm gonna, if you want, I'll send you the link. You could like jump on next week and like ask him questions.
So oh my God, I would love that. I would love that.
Cruise of Scientology.
Okay. This is what?
Like the Tom Cruise of Scientology.
Yeah, he's like the Tom Cruise of Scientology.
He's a huge influencer because I mean you have a lot of people who play poker professionally and are known all over the world and whatnot. But Negreanu came in at a time where he was so early on to like the poker boom, and he was in before the poker boom. So in the beginning, he was one of the huge faces of poker when it was just starting to come on TV. Everybody knew about it, and then as time started going through and some people would start to fade off, he continued to stay with there and stay. And I mean, he's a huge earner. I mean, he's
so is he have addiction?
He's what?
Is he what?
You say he's addicted to gambling?
Oh no, I definitely wouldn't say no. So here's the thing. Poker, you can definitely be a professional poker player. You can make a living off of playing poker.
Yeah.
And so like poker is a lot more than just gambling. There are gambling aspects to it. Like, you want to get lucky in certain situations, and sometimes you have to get lucky in certain situations. But at the end of the day, it's all about understanding the odds and numbers and playing your opponent and whatnot. It's not like going to a blackjack table and hoping that.
I was just going to say, is blackjack the same thing? Don't people make a living off blackjack?
No,
no, it's definitely way different, and which is why I'm comfortable saying that I play poker. It's also sometimes why I'm.
I don't want to like.
No, you're fine. It's also where I get like hesitant about telling certain people that like I play poker, because some people who don't understand it might think, oh, he's just replacing one addiction with another, but that's not the case. Like I'm going to Vegas for my sober birthday to play in some World Series of Poker events, and I'm going out there, and like the way I explain it to people is like I have a wife, I have a son at home. We work out like a babysitter, and we work out this and that. I'll go to Atlantic City for a weekend or a week or whatever the case may be. I'll take off work, and it's like, my wife stuck through my alcoholism, but I truly don't believe she would stick through me going to Atlantic City for 3 or 4 days or going out to Vegas for a week and doing this and that and all the inconveniences of having to have a babysitter come and go and whatnot. I don't think she would stick through any of that if she didn't herself understand and see that, like, I'm not a millionaire from it. Honestly, I'm nowhere even near rich. I make depending on who's listening, the easy way to say it is I make enough to pay some bills and just not enough that Uncle Sam doesn't have to worry about my business. So I'm like, right now I'm in a comfortable sweet spot with it. So it's cool and it works out. But but what I was originally saying, so I'm sitting at a poker table one night. I'm probably like 9 or 10 months sober. And since I stayed away from poker for the first few months I was sober, just because I didn't want to be uncomfortable. I didn't want to be around the drinking at the table. It wasn't even about the poker. I didn't want to be around the drinking. So eventually when I started going back after a couple months, I started using like my recovery coins, like however much time I had at the point. Cause for the first year you get a new color for every month. And I started using those as like they call it a card protector. It's just something you put on your card so the dealer doesn't actually accidentally fold your cards when they're going through all of their motions. So I would use this as my card protector. And we're sitting at a table. It's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, shortly before last call one night. And there's 6 of us at the table. Can't make this stuff up. This story still gives me chills thinking about it. So somebody sees my card protector and says, "Oh, that's really cool that you have like 9 months or whatever it was. I have a year," and pulls out his 1-year coin out of his pocket. And another guy at the table goes, "Oh, that's really cool as well." And he pulls out a 5-year coin. Another guy at the table sees that and goes, "Oh, that's really also cool." He pulls out like something like early teens, like 13 or 14 years or something like that. Another guy at the table, and an old man at the table goes, "Anybody else? Anybody else? Is there anybody else here?" And he waited until, and then he pulls out, he goes, "Oh, and by the way, I have 27." And he pulls out his coin. So the funny thing is, we're all drinking like soda or water or whatever the case may be. We now realize that the only person, other than the dealer, the only person at the table, there's one person who isn't sober. Like, talk about like, it's funny, like a person in recovery can feel uncomfortable around 6 people drinking. But talk about that one person who's drinking a Jack and Coke surrounded by 5 people, 5 alcoholics. So he was like, he looked at us. He's like, "Should I just get up and go to a different table?" Like, no, dude, we've been here for hours already. Like, clearly none of us care, but it's hilarious.
But don't F up the vibe. Just stay, bro.
Yeah, and but like on the retrospect of that too, I've been very, very open about, like, I constantly have people that see my coin too, because now that you get to years, it's like a gold coin. It's a little bit harder. And for people that don't know any better, like the triangle that's on the front, like it almost looks like a Freemason triangle. So people that don't know any better, like I constantly have people ask, like, "Can I see that coin?" And they'll look at it. And I always ask people, like, "Do you know what you're looking at?" And you have some people that are like, "No, what is it? Can you explain?" You have some people that are like, "Yeah, I know exactly what I'm looking at. I've been in the rooms," or, there's a lot of different ways you can like secretly tell people that you're also one of them. And, they'll say whatever they're going to say. But then like when someone will notice that I'm like open about it, and then they'll start talking, and, I'll start telling them, "Oh, well, cause I always wear like my hat or my hoodies at the table." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, this is what I do. And I interview people on a podcast. If you're interested, check it out, blah, blah, blah." And, I've on more than one occasion, I can't even count on hands how many times it's happened where like I'll get up and I'll walk away to the bathroom, or I'll be getting ready to leave, or just like walking around, stretching my legs. And I'll have people from the table come up to me and be like, "Yo, hey, what's up, man? My name is Peter. I didn't want to say it at the table. I'm not as open about it, but I'm struggling right now and I'm thinking about giving up a drink. Can I take your phone number down and reach out to you? Or do you have any suggestions, or this and that? Or, hey, I've been sober for 6 months. I'm just not open about it yet because my job or whatnot. Like, but I love what you're doing, and keep being open about it. So that way people like me know that we're not alone, and, they just hear this stuff." And it's like, I love that too, because you never know when somebody's listening. Now, I'm obviously never going to say, and this is where I said, like, I'm not anonymous about mine, but I'm anonymous about others. I know these people's names. I still stay in contact with them to this day. I'm never going to tell anybody else their name. I'm never going to ever point them out at the casino and be like, "So-and-so has been sober for 20 years. So-and-so has been sober for 10 years. Cause maybe they're not embarrassed by it, but maybe they're just not as open about it. And that's their prerogative. That's their right. And that's, and I think you also see a lot more of that with people that have a lot of years, because the whole like Alcoholics Anonymous, it was kind of like in a different way. But me personally, I also believe that was before what social media is, what it is now. I like to think that if Bill and Bob started this now, or they were alive today, I don't think that they would be telling everybody that you have to tell people you're an alcoholic, but I think that I personally think they would be a little less on the let's keep it a secret type thing, because they want to continue saving lives. And I think being open is how you can network with people and continue to let them know that they're not alone. But that's a big part of why I'm open. And I love when I like run into random people at the casino or just out in life, because I wear stuff that like people see the like ODAT and like someone who's been in recovery and be like, "Does that hat mean what I think it does?" And I'm like, "Yep, I'm a recovering alcoholic addicted to fitness." And they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." Or I actually just like on my last day of physical therapy, I was wearing a buddy of mine. He started a movement out in New York. It's called Sober is Dope. He hosts a podcast, has a group and whatnot. And shout out Pop Buchanan. But I was wearing his hoodie. I was wearing his hoodie to my last day of physical therapy. And an older gentleman comes out and he like walks out and he follows me to my car and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I talk to you for a second?" I said, "Yeah." He said, your hoodie, what does that mean? It means, I said, sober is dope. It's like sober is like a cool way. Cause he's like a really older gentleman. I want to say like 70s or 80s. And I said, dope is like what some of and I said it joking. I said, what some of the cool kids might say is like a cool thing to do or this and that. And it's just like, it's a word play too, because pop actually has a whole different meaning as well to dope, like the whole dopamines in your receptors and whatnot.
Sure.
And it's really a well thought out name. But anyway, I said, yeah, it's sober. It's like, it's another way of saying like sober is cool. Sober is awesome. And he goes, no, like, I understand what the concept means. I just wanted to make sure that's why you were wearing it. And he proceeded to tell me this entire story about how his daughter is like struggling, and she was in a rehab at that point, and she was getting ready to come home, and he was worried about what she would do in real life when she came home. And I was like, here, take my number, like, tell her to reach out. And, they say in the beginning that women should talk to women and whatnot, so that way there's no uncomfortableness in that. And I said, tell her to reach out. I'll get her in contact with other women that I know that would be more than happy to talk to her, help her get to meetings, network with her and whatnot. Or, or if she's more comfortable around like men, if she has that type of personality, like I'm here as well. But I also don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable or, make anybody feel like I'm trying to like flirt with them or, because
that position.
Yeah. And I don't want it to come off like that, because that's definitely not my intentions. But I was like, and I love that too, because a lot of times I don't even have to say anything. It's just what I'm wearing is going to give off that impression, and people are going to reach out and they're going to ask questions, whether it's openly in front of other people or on the side. And it's so cool to just have people reaching out and to know that I'm always here. I'm never going to be quiet. I'm never going to be shy. And I'm always going to be here to help you and help people achieve their goals, and to just, again, not to know that they're not alone and that we're all fighting through the struggle together one day at a time.
Damn, Skippy. Well said, Megs. Well flippin' said.
We need my clap machine. I ordered it, Mike. It's tomorrow, or today, should I say. Is it midnight yet? No, it's not midnight. But tomorrow I will have my sound machine work. Because
Yes. No, but this is But yeah, dude, I think we could go on. Like, there's so many people. We're gonna have to have you come back again, man. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I'm with it. I'll come back whenever.
Yeah, I know. I kind of focus. I'm sorry, but I focus on the addiction part of everything because it is super insightful, and there's a lot of people who are very uneducated about it. And I think how you approach this is very educational, and I think more people need to learn and educate themselves about addiction. And there's a lot of people who don't know how to handle it from like our sides, like the family part too. Yeah. So hearing it from an addict really does help as well, or someone who is currently recovering and can explain it from that point of view, because we have family members who are still currently using. So it's not, we don't hear them like we would hear someone who's now 4 years sober. So it's a way different perspective. And I think it's a lot. I mean, I still have my opinions, don't get me wrong. I am very cold towards the situation because I think we've been dealing it for 10 years now at this point, and I'm kind of like blank.
For sure. And there's nothing wrong. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that too. I mean, you're obviously allowed to feel how you feel. Yeah. You're allowed to, cope the way you cope. And it's really hard too. And I definitely don't mean anything like rude by this or anything, but there's also a big gap and a big difference between knowing people and understanding addiction and how it affects people and seeing it with your own eyes, as opposed to actually being the active addict yourself.
Of course.
And so, because there's so many people who think like, damn, why can't he just stop using? All he has to do is stop doing drugs. All he has to do is stop drinking. And like I said, no, I know. And like I used to say for years too, it's like, man, I never said out loud that I was an alcoholic, and I never admitted, but there was like a couple years right before I quit drinking where like I knew it in my heart. I just wasn't going to say it out loud to anybody else because I didn't want to admit it. And it's really, really tough, because like if people think that we don't want to stop, they're crazy. Like for every addict out there, more than half of them want to stop. Like you'll have some people that might be just happy at where they're at and where it's going. But even some of the ones that, even there's a lot of people too that even admit they have a problem, and they'll just flat out say like, I'm just not ready to be done yet. Like I'm just not ready. And that's the thing, is like these people, we have to be ready and we have to stop. I saw this really cool meme for people that don't understand. And I know this isn't what you were saying, but like for people that really don't understand addiction, it's like it was a really cool meme that went around and it said, if you think quitting drinking or doing drugs is so easy, then here's what I want you to do. Put your phone in your pocket for 24 hours and don't touch it. And every time you think about taking your phone out of your pocket, just remember that's going through an addict's mind.
Yeah.
And it's like when you think of something like that, like, and I think I messed up some of the words, but you clearly get the point. But it's like when you think about something like that, is like, because addiction, drinking, drugging, all that, it becomes so much a part of your everyday, all day life. The same way checking your phone and responding to a text message and checking your Facebook and your TikTok and your Instagram, all of that does. It's a part of your life. It's like, there's so many times where like I said, I didn't sometimes drink till late at night, but there were some times where I drank so much the night before and I had to go to work the next day that sometimes when I would get to work, setting up the bar, getting ready to bartend for my shift, I would have to not necessarily get drunk, but I would have to slam down 3 or 4 ounces of like a high alcohol beer just to kind of take the edge off so I wouldn't feel hungover. And so I could get through another day to kind of take those like early shakes away. And that started happening a little bit more and more towards the end of my drinking as well. And I mean, you have some people that get really, really bad. I've seen people like working in dive bars, where it's like after working like a 9-hour shift, they're like come in and like the first shot they get, their hands are like shaking. They can't even pick up a shot glass. They have to pretty much take their mouth to the shot glass because the shakes are so bad until they get that first drink in them. And it's
the same like when you're hungover and you get like shakes, I mean, obviously I don't drink. Like I would like to say I don't drink like that, but if I have a night out, like once in a while, like, moms have their nights out and I don't get blackout wasted, but you get a little hungover. It affects me differently now at this age. I wake up the next day, I feel like, and I can't move. I can't get out of bed. It takes me like 4 days to recover from a night out. Like it's ridiculous. And I probably have 3 drinks.
Yeah. And I hear you. And it's a crazy feeling when you wake up hungover. Like everybody has like those joking moments, especially like.
Is that what an alcoholic feels like waking the next day, like every day? Is that how you feel did you feel like that every single day after drinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy too, because you wake up in the morning and you have this disgusting feeling where you're like really hungover. You feel like hell. You just stopped drinking 3 hours ago. You're actually trying to figure out for like the first half hour to hour of the day, you're trying to figure out, am I hungover or actually am I still drunk? Like, there's quite a few mornings where I drove to work and I'm like, if I get pulled over for speeding right now, like I'm still getting a DUI at like 10 o'clock in the morning because I only just stopped drinking at 6. And so, I mean, that's been in my mentality, and it's crazy because you have like your first hour of the day where it's like, why do I do this again? Like, why do I do this every day? I'm not drinking anymore. Like I'm stopping, or, even if you don't go that extreme, you're just like, I'm not drinking tonight. I'm taking the day off. I'm going to let myself recover, blah, blah, blah. And then by like an hour later, it's like, all you can think about is getting your first drink of the day later on when you're done working. And it's like, the normal person, the non-alcoholic thinks, and it's like, they have those joking feelings where, oh, I'm never drinking again. I'm never drinking again. But like the difference is by the end of the day, they're not thinking about their first drink tonight. Like they're probably not even drinking tonight. Or if they are, it's maybe going out with some friends after work and having a couple and they're just chilling and they can sit there and tell their friends like, no, I'm not getting drunk tonight. I'm taking it easy. I drank too much last night. It's cool. Like I'm going home, but no, that doesn't work for us. Like every single night that I drank, my intention was, I'm just going to have a couple. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going out to watch the Yankees game. I'm just going out to watch the Steelers. I'm just going. Once I started, I could not stop. I could go in certain situations. I could go a day, even 2 days without drinking, but I could never, ever, ever stop. If the bar was closed, I would always make sure there was alcohol at home. And so if the bar closed and I couldn't get anything to drink on the way home, I would just go home and drink. And I can't tell you how many times, like I don't smoke cigarettes. So my wife never had to worry about me passing out with a cigarette in my mouth and burning the sofa. But my problem is that she woke up quite a few times to a new stain on the sofa because I spilled whatever I was drinking, because I would fall asleep with a drink in my hand. Like I would always have a half a beer or a half a drink that had to get thrown away, because I would literally, once I start, I very, very rarely, maybe 1 out of 10 times, I would go to sleep not in the middle of a drink. I would usually drink until I blacked out 100%.
Miggs, Ashley said, love this. I'm friends with Bill.
Yeah, love it. Oh, that's so awesome. We can do it, Ashley, one day at a time. Keep grinding.
That's it, baby.
Ash, I'm assuming this is my friend Ashley, right? Hawaii Ashley? Or is it just another random Ashley?
There's all the
'Cause,
Ashleys.
I know a lot of Ashleys,
Like
so I
my
just want to make
wife's Ashley, but it's not that one. It's like, no
well,
judgment anyway.
maybe it is Ashley.
Yeah,
And
maybe
she's
it's I don't know. Yeah,
hi,
Savannah. Hey,
Savannah.
hey.
Like everyone is popping in now. We got all the late night people showing up here for tonight. But
Yeah,
guys,
I
for
love
anyone
Hawaii.
everyone who's just tuning in or just showing up, we got Migs here, who is a recovering addict, and he has the brand Stay Fit. Pronounce it correctly. Make sure I'm saying it right.
Staying Fit ODAT.
Staying Fit Oda. So one day at a time. Love, love, love it. Guys, we had some really in-depth conversations about everything he went through, his family life, how his wife was through the whole thing. Hi, Ash.
And then I just dropped the link. I kind of chopped up the link so that I could actually send it to you guys, but I put it in the chat as well.
Oh, it's Ashley from Hawaii. Well, she grew up in Oceanside with me. We went to high school together. It's my best friend. So
oh snap! I know Ashley. Well, maybe I don't.
No, you do. Actually, you know Ashley.
I want to go to Hawaii so bad. I want to go to Hawaii. I actually interviewed someone on the podcast who qualified for the Ironman World Championships and actually got to compete in the Ironman out in Kona, and it's like so amazing. Like I can't imagine that experience. He said it's so cool. He also said like the AA meetings in Hawaii just like completely hit different. They're just like a whole laid back mentality, and it's just like it's so cool. Like I just love going to meetings when I go to different places because you just get to meet different perspectives, especially like vacation spots. Like we go to Outer Banks, North Carolina every year. And so it's really cool going to like a meeting there because like a meeting out here, if you catch like an out of towner or something like that, it's like, all right, there's like 9 Lehigh Valley people to like this one out of towner, but like you go to somewhere like a beach town or something like that, and you go to a meeting and there's like 3 locals, but everybody else is like from out of town on vacation with their family. So you get to meet this guy from Georgia and this guy from Pennsylvania and this guy from Florida and this guy from South Carolina. And like everybody's there with the same purpose of with their family. It's actually cool. I actually got my 2-month, my 60-day coin actually at the beach in North Carolina. And got to meet some really cool people out there. It was really awesome.
It's like literally an AA meeting anywhere you go. Like if you could just look it up. Like if you're on vacation, you want to go to a meeting, you can. I know.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. When Ash first moved to Hawaii, and she found a whole bunch of other friends who were friends with Bill right away, and was able to go and hang out with them and stuff like that. So I think she was super comfortable. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashley, and talk about what you feel comfortable with. But she said that it was very open arms, if I'm not mistaken, when she went down there to go hang out with everyone.
It's so cool. Like actually, it's funny about the whole Bill W thing. So when I was getting ready to go to Jamaica for our wedding, we're sitting in the airport and the intercom, like someone was like paging friends. If any friends of Bill W, please come to so-and-so gate. And, shrug it off, didn't think anything of it. And then a couple minutes later, it happened again. And a couple minutes later, it happened again. And I remember not knowing any better because I had never been to a meeting. I didn't know who Bill W was. I didn't know any of this. I just remember thinking like, man, somebody needs to find this man's friend and go help him.
ASAP.
What I know now, after actually hearing somebody else talk about this, is you can actually go to an airport. And if you're super uncomfortable, like say you're traveling and you're new in recovery and you're overwhelmed by everything that's going on, or you're thinking about going to the airport bar and picking up a drink or anything like that, you can go to a gate and have them page friends of Bill W. And then someone who then knows, like I know now if I'm in an airport and they say somebody who's friends, any friends of Bill W, please come to gate 8. I know I'm going to go to gate 8 because most likely that means that somebody is struggling and they're thinking about doing something and they need somebody to talk to. They need somebody to help them. And so like now with that information, I know I would immediately like run to that gate and try and help that person and talk to that person, maybe exchange a phone number with that person and try and be there. But yeah, you obviously gotta take some things under understanding, but like, I know like if I were to hear that and I had an opportunity to even go and exchange a phone number, you know what I mean? To even be able to text with this person, to just give them someone to talk to, or like, it's just cool. But like knowing this now, it's like, that's really cool. And it like, I didn't even think of it too. When we were in Jamaica, there was one sign where like, when you go to like a typical AA meeting in your local town, there's usually like a little triangle, like a little sign on the door, and it says like AA, like your local church door, or whatever the case may be. But I remember in Jamaica, there was one closed door, and the sign on the door said Friends of Bill W. And again, I didn't resonate to like the whole hearing the thing back at the airport and anything, because again, I'm completely still in my active addiction, never been to a meeting. But these are things that, like, looking back, for some reason, like my brain made me remember these moments, but I didn't understand why they were important to me. And looking back, I'm thinking now, like, that Friends of Bill W sign, there is most likely that means on the other side of that door is probably an AA meeting at the Sandals Resort.
Funny. Yeah,
And
Ash
so
Rose was too, and she said, "I love the fact that the airport. I forgot about that. It's so true. That's awesome."
yes,
So
it's so cool. You can find help wherever, and you could just Google, you know, AA meetings near me. That's how I found my very first meeting ever. I came out of church and I just Googled AA meeting near me, and I found a local one, and I popped up at it. And then you'll find out there's actually apps usually for like different counties and different states and whatnot. Like, I have an app called Meeting Guide, and it refreshes regularly, and it'll show me all the meetings within like 100 miles of my house. I can put in different zip codes. It actually works on a fairly national base. Some areas, like when I go to Outer Banks, they don't update with Meeting Guide, so I actually have to go to a different website. But for the most part, like, you can find out. It'll let you know too. Especially, it was like really important when Zoom, or I mean, when the pandemic originally started, because it would tell you which meetings are shut down, which one are still doing Zoom meetings, which ones are in person. But like, I still use it to this day. Like, you know, like, say I'm in like the neighboring town of Easton one day and I'm hanging out at the gym, and I'm like, hey, I want to hit a meeting on my way home. I want to go see some new people, a meeting I've never been to. It's like, I just cock on Meeting Guide, and it looks up my location, and it's like, all right, these are all the meetings that are happening within 30 miles of you over the next time. All right, cool. There's this meeting happening 10 miles away. It starts in a half hour. I'm going to go there. And it's like, I mean, the resources are endless. Like, if you have the desire and you want to get there, the resources are unbelievably endless.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah, buddy.
I'm gonna say, like, we could keep digging it, but I'm gonna say we might have to put a pin in it here, because I'm gonna be straight up with you guys. I'm tired right now. How you feeling, by the way, Megs?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sorry.
chilling. Yeah, you get me talking about recovery or fitness, man. It doesn't matter how tired I am. I could go all night. It's like it's the most important thing to me. Like, my priorities in life are recovery, family, and then like work, fitness. Everything else goes in between.
Or family.
100% before family.
Because so I think of it this way.
Someone else. Yeah,
listen, here's one thing that I heard early on, and again, like, a lot of this stuff is things that I heard early on that just make a lot of sense to me. You would think that you have to put your family before your recovery and this and that because you'll lose it. But anything you put before your recovery, you will lose. Anything. And so you put your recovery before everything, so that way you continue to stay sober. Because what good is it? You know, I mean, it sounds crazy, and you really got to understand what you're saying to make sense of it. But like, you know, you can try and put your family before your recovery, but if you do, you're bound to eventually do something stupid, think that you have a grasp on it, be that person who has 8 or 9 years sober and think that it's all right, it's completely fine. I can just go here, I can go there, and I'm good. And, you know, before you know it, you lose it. You have to put your recovery before everything, because anything you put before it, you will lose. And maybe that doesn't speak for anybody, but I know it 100% does resonate with me. So therefore, like, absolutely nothing goes before my recovery. I'll put things before my fitness. Like, my family comes before my fitness, before running, before the gym, everything like that. But nothing comes before recovery. Like, if I need an AA meeting, my wife knows, like, there is no event in this world that I will put before an AA meeting if I know that I really, really need one. Because what point is it? And you know, they're rare circumstances, but what point is it going to this wedding if I know that I'm in such a bad mental state that I might pick up a drink at the wedding and throw everything away over it? So I'd rather be late after hitting a meeting, or maybe I try and hit a meeting that morning so that way I'm prepared for that wedding at night. But absolutely nothing goes before recovery.
That's right. I think the only thing that might be more important than what is the birth of your child.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. Trust me. And I think that's where it comes to like.
I'm pushing.
No. I hear you. And that's, I think, where it goes to the fine line. Like, don't get me wrong. If I'm not, like, if my wife's in labor, I'm not leaving the hospital to go to a meeting, and, you know, vice versa. Like, if I know if she's like I know if she's like 9 months pregnant, I might have my phone on loud because if I'm in a meeting and she calls me, I'm going to leave that meeting early to go. But at the same time, too, you know, I wasn't sober until after my son got out of the hospital. But like, I can tell you right now, too, like if our next child is born, you know, because we're trying to get pregnant now, but like if our next child is born, like I'm going to be there for the entire birth and everything. But it wouldn't surprise me if after a few hours, I know mom and baby, everybody is healthy, everything is good, and someone is there with her. I can go, and I'm open enough with my entire family. I can tell my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, hey, I'll be back in 2 hours. I got to go hit a meeting. You know, I mean, like I might not leave the hospital to go for a run, but I might leave the hospital to go for a meeting to get grounded, to reset, to be around people like myself before, you know, you start getting overwhelmed with all those brand new baby duties. And yeah, I mean, there's a million different ways to look at it and all those situations. And, you know, there are very, very rare circumstances, but like either way, I'm just a firm believer that you can't put anything before your recovery unless you're willing to lose it.
Sorry, Mike. I know I just made him go on another 10 minutes.
No.
Keep talking about this.
So the only thing that made me think of it's like, you know, like this is an old expression analogy. Is like, you know, they always tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Like you got to take care of you.
Yes,
if you don't take care of you, man, like
you're useless to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
You're useless. It might work you might get one of your children, you know, out the plane. You might get your wife off the plane. You might get one of them, but you know, someone's bound. You're bound to take somebody down with you.
That freaks me out. Oh, thinking about like something happening to a child. I don't know why.
Knock on wood.
It's
not gonna happen.
No, I know. I have really bad postpartum anxiety. So like all those like random like horrible mom thoughts go through my head.
Intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
Flights still terrify me. I've only been on a couple and they still absolutely terrify. Any sound I hear, I think the plane's going down.
Certain movies and shows that had children dying after like I gave birth, like in the first year, made me hysterical into panic attacks. So like I couldn't watch certain shows and stuff like that. And Euphoria did it to me too.
Dude, Euphoria is intense.
Euphoria made me cry and have panic attacks.
That brings me back to a lot of my childhood, or like just like.
Did you watch Euphoria at all?
No, weirdly enough, I've never watched the show. I've heard so much about it. I need to check it out because I know it's like right up my alley of what I should be watching.
But just be aware, it's very triggering.
Yeah.
Very depending, I don't know what your triggers are, but like for me, like the fact that the children are going through this in high school, all I kept thinking about is how can I avoid my daughter becoming an addict? What can I do to help prevent it? Should I talk to her about this age about it? It runs in our family. Oh my God, how do I prevent it? How do I educate her? Do I keep it from her? Like I went down a rabbit hole and just started like spiraling.
And you know what too? Like I said, I could stay here for hours more. I know you guys, but like, you know, even like if or when, whatever you have me back on, like that's a whole nother topic that I've had like discussions of people like when to talk about your addiction. Like I have 16-year-old twins and they know I'm an
we should
alcoholic.
definitely.
But like, then, you know, like my youngest, like 4, it's like, when do we start telling him that, like, you know, it's easy to just say, hey, your dad goes to this meeting because he's an alcoholic. And he's actually been to a lot of meetings. He actually already understands the concept because he grew up in the rooms because my wife would be at work and I would have to go to a meeting. So I would take him. I had old ladies in the beginning when I was like just a couple months sober. They'd be like, hey, you never miss a meeting because you have a baby. You bring the baby. You give us the baby. We'll take the baby to the back of the room. We'll feed the baby so you can sit here and you can pay attention to the meeting and you can hear everything that's going on because you only have a few months sober and it's important for you to know what's going on. But don't ever feel like you have to miss a meeting because you have a kid. And he grew up going to meetings. He just went to one with me last week. And it's funny because he already understands kind of the anonymity. Like he knows that, like I've told him, like anything you hear in there, it's a secret. It's a secret. If anybody ever asks you where you were with daddy, you went to go see daddy's friends and it's a secret and you just leave it at that. And like, so he looks at it like he doesn't understand AA obviously, but he thinks we're going to see daddy's friends and it's a secret. And he understands enough to already know that. He's starting to get to an age where I'm probably going to start putting headphones on him because I don't want him understanding retaining some of the stuff that you hear. Sure. But it's still like, I'm not willing to miss a meeting just because he's with me. I'd rather we go together and we grow together. But I mean, like, so I can go on discussing like debating on, you know, when it's important to talk to your kids.
I feel younger, my husband feels older.
At what level? Yeah, it's tough for me because I think personally, the further and further we get along in today's society, I think is more and more reason to start talking younger because they have all these social media outlets. I mean, you got kids like I grew up in an era in the 90s. When I grew up in the 90s at 13, 14 years old, kids were, you know, they were smoking flower but it stopped there. Now you have 13 and 14-year-olds that are out and,
in their locker.
they're doing the hard stuff, and this is crazy. And it's like, it's like, we need to have this discussion. Like, you're going to do what you're going to do. I can't stop you from making your decisions. You're going to make your decisions in life. You're going to have to live with them. You're going to have to whatever, and that's going to be that. But we also need to have the discussion and understand that you genetically come from like 3 generations of alcoholic and addict. And so you are very likely to be prone to that. It's in our DNA. And, that's just, you need to understand before you start drinking or doing drugs at such a young age. You need to understand that
I'm really starting to fidget the flap here. I'm really like, you see how
look, the anxiety's kicking in.
I was like, oh, Jesus, like that's my biggest fear is like
it's scary, but it's reality. It's terrifying, and I get it. It's terrifying. Like, I think about this all the day because, like I said, I don't want to say a terrible relationship because that would imply that like whatever, but like I have a very lack of a relationship with the 16-year-olds. But it terrifies me every day thinking like they're just hanging out with friends. What is happening? What is happening? And on another note too, even aside from drugs, like my great grandfather had my grandfather when he was like 19. My grandfather had my dad when he was like 18. My dad had me when I was 19. I had them when I was 18. They're 16. Do the math. If they don't break the cycle, which I'm praying to God they do, but if they don't break the cycle, I'm damn near ready to be a grandfather in like the next like 3 years. Now I'm really hoping this is where the cycle stops. I've seen no signs to think that it can happen, but at the same time, you never know. Like, right. I don't know, like I'm 34. I might mess around and be a grandfather by the time I'm like, before I'm 40. Like, I mean, my mom is 52. My mom is 52 and has 9 grandkids because me and my brother and sister all started super early. And it's hopefully my kids break the cycle. Hopefully.
Matt, thank you for the follow. Virtual hugs, guys. Again, we do a live podcast every single Wednesday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tonight we had Migs on and we had some great conversations just about everything from addiction, health, and in between. And guys, I think we're gonna call it a night for tonight, but we'd love to have Migs back on. And, maybe some other people too who have, a perspective about addiction, what they're going through. Maybe Ashley will join us and see how she's been. I forgot her count for where she's at now. But yeah, thank you so much, Migs, for really, really diving into this with us. And guys, you are absolutely amazing. Mike, anything? Migs, you want to say anything?
I just want to leave the stage to Migs. I want to say thanks. Dorothy said also she emailed me, so I'm going to connect her with you, Migs. But yeah, I just want to leave the stage to you, man, to plug. You got TikTok, you got a podcast, you got the Facebook group. Kind of just drop that and share that with the people. And then Eugene, thanks for the follow as well. Virtual hugs, homie. But let the people know what's up, Migs, how they can communicate with you, how they can follow you. You got your own content you put out there. So like, let them know how they can kind of stay in touch with you.
Anybody out there, reach out to me. Facebook, Miguel Reyes. On Instagram, I have 2 different accounts. My personal account is Migs FFF.Migs or FFF, which stands for Faith Family Fitness _Migs _ODAT. The Staying Fit ODAT page is just at Staying Fit ODAT. On TikTok, it's Migs _Staying Fit ODAT. You can email me at stayingfitodat@gmail.com. Reach out. I'll give anybody and everybody my phone number. I'm not quiet. I'm not private about anything. I'm super open. Anybody, if you are listening to this and you're struggling, if you are thinking about picking up a drink or a drug, if you are in active recovery right now and you're thinking about picking up a drink or a drug, please reach out. If you are looking for reasons to put down the drink or the drug and you're trying to start your active recovery, please reach out. The most important thing and the biggest reason why I'm not quiet and I'm not anonymous about my recovery is because I need people to understand that they are not alone. There's other people out there. There is hope on the other side. I tell people all the time, it is not easy. It never, ever, ever gets easy. I can't speak for people with more sobriety than myself because I only know my own story. But I know that going on 4 years now, it never gets easy, but it continues to get easier. And so there is an easier, softer way. There are going to be waves. Life isn't going to change overnight. It's not just immediately. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, all right, I'm sober. The world is supposed to just be handed to me. No, you still got to work for everything. You still got to keep everything you want. I'll close with a really, really, really awesome quote that I heard that someone actually just sent to me. I'm connected with this young woman, Sylvia, who actually interviewed on the podcast. She actually sends me inspirational AA quotes every day. And she said, sobriety is not a gift. It is a grant, because a gift is something you get to keep forever. And a grant is something that is contingent on you doing something to be able to keep it. And so I need to continue working on my recovery in order to keep this grant of sobriety. And like I woke up that morning and I was like, I love this. I'm going to a meeting today. Like, this is beautiful. I'm going to continue working my steps. So people, please reach out. No, you're not alone. There's other people out there. I guarantee for everybody, like if you think about the 10 closest people in your life, more than likely, at least one of them is either in active addiction, in active recovery, or they're just not saying anything yet. But I promise you, the numbers are way higher than people believe. These people are out there. Reach out, talk to people, and also be nice to people, because you never know what's going through this person's mind. You never know if they're the one trying to put down the drink or the drug. They don't want to be an a-hole. They don't want to snap at you. They're trying to make it through the day without picking up a drink, and they don't want to tell you because they're trying to figure things out, and they don't want to be. So just don't judge people, hug people, love people, and everybody just know you're not alone, and just know you can keep grinding. But just most importantly, remember that we all got to do this one day at a time, and we're all doing this together one day at a time.
And big shout out to Ashley. She said 83 days.
Get it, girl. Get it, girl.
I love that. See, like, remember that's the kind of stuff right there. It gives me chills, because I told you the most important person in the room is the newcomer. Ashley, 83 days is absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Obviously, you already know this. Don't take anything for granted. The pink clouds, they're going to go up. They're going to go down. Some days are going to be awesome. Some days are going to be terrible. I promise you, though, Ashley, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. I've never met you. Just one thing I'm going to ask you to do. And this is one thing that I go with, like the whole fitness thing. If you ever think about picking up and you ever think about using again, I want you to go to the gym. I want you to go for a run, go for a bike ride, go for a walk, do something for 1 hour. In that 1 hour, I want you to think about anything in your life that is going to get better if you pick up a drink or a drug. If you can think about any part of your life that will get better, go home, talk to someone, explain that to that person. And if you can figure out that it's better, go for it. But if you can't think of anything in your life that is going to get better when you pick up that drink or the drug, talk to people, work through it, because I promise you, all of those problems that are there when you're struggling, everything that you're dealing with, life, death, financial issues, all of those problems that you're dealing with that make you want to pick up a drink or a drug, when after you're done using, all of those problems are still there, plus you have one more. So don't add that one extra problem. Please just work through it and reach out if you need anything ever.
Yes, Ashley, we love you. And I'm probably going to call you after we get off the phone, because it's 2 p.m. in Hawaii somewhere. But guys, again, thank you so much for tuning in here. Everyone who talked in the chat with us. You guys are all amazing. We absolutely love every single one of you. Thank you for all the new followers. Again, guys, go check out Miggs' stuff. Literally, his Facebook page is on his hat. Everything you want to find is right there on his hat. There. So guys, with that being said, I think we're going to tune out. And thank you so much for being here. And guys, we will see you. Me and Mike will be live tomorrow.
Bam, we'll be back.
God
Love
bless
you
everybody.
guys.
Bye, guys.